All right, Brian, we're live. Hello, everyone in the chat room. We got another big show this week. Very excited.
Hello, everybody.
Brian's got a new microphone setup going.
Yeah, so if anyone here with us in the chat room would like to comment on my sound quality, if it sounds a little better or a little worse than usual, I would love that feedback.
Yes, me too. Brian, it looks like my backup recording thing isn't working again.
I love the backup recording updates.
So I'm not going to do it, and we'll just hope that YouTube is good.
Yeah, so people in the chat room have two jobs tonight. The first is to monitor my sound quality, and the other is to tell us if things get really weird and wacky, in which case that probably means YouTube is messed up.
Yeah.
But that's happened like once in like, I don't know, 100 tries.
Yeah, but all it takes is one. But thanks, Patty, so much for the loud and clear. And I'm excited. I'm ready to go. Karlsson got some points yesterday, so life is good. Life is good at KKHQ right now.
So good.
All right, how about I'll start the show?
That's so good. What a great idea.
Here we are. Here we go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, do it again. It happens often on the yes.
Oh my god, because it's a big clip. It's a big clip. That's too bad. I don't know. I don't know the microphone settings. I need someone to come in here and tell me what to do. Okay. Here we go. Yes! Welcome everybody to another episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the best fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by two guys who own Erik Karlsson in their keeper pools, which is something I'm finally excited to announce to the world, that I have Erik Karlsson and I'm happy about it. I'm your host, Elon Dubrovsky, and with me for yet another episode where we're going to break everything down from the past week is my co-host and BFF, the fantasy hockey robot, Brian Combe.
Of all the things you call me, Elon, that is the one I treasure the most. It's so nice to be here for another episode with you, and of course with you, listener, and we can feel good about Karlsson. We're gonna close the episode with some Karlsson positivity. It's gonna bookend the show. And just a quick note right off the top, for anybody who's used to streaming, this week has like a crazy schedule. You've got games, pretty much full schedules on Wednesday and Friday,
And
which
Saturday.
is totally weird. Nobody plays Thursday. There's only one game Tuesday. You have your usual full slate on Saturday. So if you like generally save moves to stream later for Friday and Sunday, you might want to get out in front of this week and make sure you've got, like if you want an extra game, you got to start on Monday.
Yeah, it might be, that'll be your chance on Monday to get the extra game. Exactly, Brian's right. Weird schedule. What's going on, Brian? Like, what is on Thursday that's causing no games to happen?
I think this is very, like, we're outing ourselves clearly as Canadians. I'm pretty sure it's American Thanksgiving.
That's not on the weekend? That rolls around? I guess, yeah, we're sounding dumb now. So how about we just move on? Tell us in the chat room. If
the NHL chooses not to compete with, like, whatever Dallas-Washington game might be happening. It's like the Thanksgiving classics.
Oh, I see. NFL, of course. Patty thinks American Thanksgiving. There we go. Very excited. Okay, good for you, Americans. And hopefully you're going to be thankful for this episode. We're going to try our best to make it good. Of course, one site that always keeps it good is DobberHockey.com, and we're very proud to be presented by them. Every day you've got daily ramblings updating you on what's going on. Great articles all the time. Then all the tools over at Frozen Tools. I use them every week to prep the show. You got starting goalies, real-time line combinations, everything you need. DobberHockey.com. Brian, okay, let's get started with some injuries and outjuries. It's been a tough year. I feel like this is probably every year, but like a lot of big players getting injured, a lot of people really struggling with their fantasy teams. But hey, I guess this is where there's obviously a lot of luck involved, but also there's some skill in figuring out how to navigate around all of this bad luck. But it's not all bad luck, because also there's some players coming back. So why don't we start in Philly, where they had an in-and-out burger, which is what I call when a team loses a player and gets a player. I feel like it's not working though, right?
No, any outie is still my a belly button.
Okay. Philadelphia had a belly button because they got JVR back, but Brian Elliott got hurt. Man, these Philly goalies, they can't stay healthy. So let's start on a positive note. JVR, James Van Riemsdyk, finally returned from his knee injury on Thursday after missing all but the first two games of the season. Quiet return versus the Devils, no points, only 2 shots. But yesterday, a huge breakout, 1 goal, 2 assists in that crazy 6-5 overtime loss to Tampa Bay. He had a goal and an assist from the top power play unit, which we were all very surprised to not seeing occupying a spot in at the start of the season. If you recall, JVR was on power play 2. Simmons was on the top power play. But yesterday, things were looking a lot more like our preseason expectations, right? It was Couture, Giroux, JVR, Voracek, Gosper on the top power play. JVR also occupied a spot on the second line, or maybe the third line, I don't know, middle six, playing with Simmons and Jordan Wheel. And for completion, the top line was Giroux, Konechny, Couturier. The second line, Voracek, Patrick, and Lindblom. So things are looking how we expected them to look. Philly scoring some goals lately. Got to imagine good times are ahead for James Van Riemsdyk, right? Like looking at our almanac projections, I went with a 60-point pace. You went with a 65-point pace as our projections. Are you still feeling good about your choice to go higher and go with 65?
I'm feeling all right about it. That projection for 65 points for James Van Riemsdyk was definitely based on him seeing top power play time and at least second line deployment. And the thing here is that we can't see a definitive second line in Philadelphia. They're running more of a top 9 than a top 6. But the good news is that James Van Riemsdyk, regardless of where in that top 9 he is, he's getting top 6 minutes. He's played about 17 minutes in both games since returning from his injury. Last time JVR averaged that much time on ice, 17 minutes a game, was back in 2015-16. The last couple of years, he's been averaging about 14 and a half. So this is a nice bump of 2.5 minutes per game. So I am going to stick with 65 here, thinking that another 2.5 minutes can look good on James Van Riemsdyk, though projecting him is definitely still a moving target as we see how and where he settles into the Philly lineup and how that whole lineup settles as a whole. There's been a lot of movement. There's going to be a little more now that Van Riemsdyk is back in the lineup. But if somebody dropped him because you're in one of those leagues that has like one IR space, you need to go out and add James Van Riemsdyk right away.
Yeah, and also if your league counts shots, he's always really big at helping you there. So, yeah, I'm expecting things to be good now that he's back on the top power play, where I think he belongs. I thought that was the whole reason they got him. And still, don't forget, Simmons is an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. So maybe this now allows Philly to go about shopping Wayne Simmons, trying to get something back for him now that they have JVR in the picture. But okay, fine. So after last week, right, I was hoping to take a break from goalie talk. We pretty much went through a bunch of the goalie situations in the league. But of course, we're getting forced by the injuries. They're forcing our hand to talk about goalies once again. So Brian Elliott got hurt reaching to stop a Kyle Palmieri wraparound goal, and he's going to be out for 2 weeks. Could be worse. He was actually on a really nice run, though I don't think people realize Elliott had 7 straight games with a save percentage above .917. So a really sad time for him to get injured. I feel like this happened last year. I should have looked this up, but I feel like he went on a really good run and then got injured. Then when he came back, it all fell apart. And, so I definitely am not super confident in him keeping it up when he gets back. But okay, in the meantime, same story as also. Mikhail Neuwirth is still out. The word is, I saw in Roto World, he may return before Elliott. So maybe at some point he'll take over as the starter until he gets injured again very quickly. For now, I guess the net belongs to Calvin Pickard and Alex Lyon, who was called up. Pickard has been terrible this season. He has an .852 save percentage in 8 games so far. He led in 6 of 26 shots yesterday. So a big reason why Philly couldn't get by Tampa, even though they scored all of those goals. Do you think that Lyon and Calvin Pickard are just going to kind of go back and forth until someone has a good start? Or is this like Calvin Pickard's net? He's the starting goalie for the next couple of weeks. Like, it's hard to imagine we're going to recommend for people to jump on either of these guys unless your league like only counts wins. And even still, like, I don't know how many wins Philly's going to be able to get with these two, I don't know, seemingly subpar goalies.
So Calvin Pickard, there was a time when we thought, hey, like maybe he could challenge for the #1 job in Colorado. Maybe he can push Semyon Varlamov, because in his first 2 seasons in the NHL, over 36 starts, he had a save percentage in the high 920s. And then the wheels fell off. He actually played 50 games in 16-17 because, of course, Semyon Varlamov got injured. Had a 904, which seemed like respectable, but a terrible quality start percentage. Then played 1 game for Toronto last year, put up an 857. This year, he has started 6 games, has had 1 quality start amongst those. And of course, a quality start is when you post a save percentage that is league average or better, or you win the game, giving up fewer than 2 goals on 2 goals or less on get an 885 save percentage and still win the game. Anyway, Calvin Pickard has not been quality starting at all. He has not he's stunk straight up. And it's really a shame that we thought there could be some upside here at some point in his career, but it is all but gone right now. At first, you just want to sort of forgive the guy because 3 of the 6 goals against versus Tampa the other day were on the man advantage, and one of those goals against was at a 2-man disadvantage for the Flyers, but Pickard also was just bad at 5-on-5. So at this point, yeah, I don't see why not try out Alex Lyon. If your league counts anything other than wins, though, regardless of who's starting between Pickard and Lyon, it's going to be a risk every single night to play either Flyers goalie and have them blow up your numbers. What a shame that the Flyers didn't hang on to Peter Mrazek. All of a sudden, he could have been useful if he were healthy.
I mean,
do you remember when they had Peter Mrazek?
Yeah, and he was terrible, and like there's no reason to think that he would have been any better. Plus, he's injured right now also, so maybe this is a ring situation, like he would get hurt as well.
The silver lining in all of this is that what you mentioned at the start, that Brian Elliott was actually doing reasonably well. And if you listen to our show closely, you wouldn't be terribly surprised by that. And hopefully he's not out for long and can come back to help the Flyers salvage the remaining 60 games of this season and try and still take a run at a playoff spot.
Yeah, okay. So let's get through the other long-term goalie injuries. Let's get goalies out of the way at the start of the show.
Are we leaving Philly?
I wanted to leave Philly. Like, what else are we going to say? Yeah, Neuwirth, Elliott, like, who knows? It's really tough to own a goalie in Philly.
Okay, but I have things to say.
Go. You were just saying things. Say some more things.
Philadelphia players. Well, first off, Claude Giroux. I blew that one, right? On the Almanac, I projected him to fall back down to 70 points. And this year, that does not seem to be the case. He has a higher 5-on-5 shots on goal and shot attempt rates. They're actually the second highest rates in his career for putting puck on net. Only in 14-15 did he have higher rates of putting the puck towards the net. Giroux's also sustaining a 5-on-5 shooting percentage that's above his career norm. He has a 13.3 right now, which, if it stayed till the end of the season, would be his second best shooting percentage ever, second only to last season's, which was one of the reasons that I thought Giroux wouldn't be quite so solid this year. But one mistake I can already see that I may have made in projecting Giroux is assuming that his present ceiling wasn't going to be significantly higher than the numbers he was doing 3 or 4 years ago when he was being killed by low personal and on-ice shooting percentages. Like, I figured age with reasonable percentages would wash out to him being around 70, but I think I went too hard on the age thing, regressed too hard towards past season in which he faced unsustainably bad luck. Because right now he looks like an 85, 90-point player to me. So there is an early projection concession I have for you. I was wrong about Claude Giroux.
Okay. Actually, Brian, yeah, sorry about that. So I blew it also on the pod. So we both have one thing to apologize for, because I forgot that I wrote this whole thing. I was going to ask you about Giroux. So yeah, to set the stage here, I meant to say to everyone that with Claude Giroux, you projected a 70-point place to go into the season. I thought I was being a big maverick by saying 75 to go higher. Now he's got 24 points in 20 games. It's looking like, again, he could hit 100 points just like he did last year. So you're saying that we got that one wrong. Hopefully one we got right. Remind me, Brian, Sean Couturier, he really stunk at the start of the year, and I feel like we suggested on the podcast that people should hold on to him or buy low because he'd be fine. I sure hope we did, because he's been great lately, 11 points in his last 9 games. So I think we got that one right, and people are loving owning these Flyers top liners right now. Even Konechny's doing stuff.
Yeah, even not the Flyers top liners. So first off, you just mentioned Konechny finally getting on track. Or so it seems. He had a short 3-game point streak after having been quiet for 5 games. We had a goal and 2 assists. Then he went quiet for another 3 games and then scored 2 goals on 8 shots against Tampa. And 4 games earlier, he had a goal on 7 shots. So these big shot games are an exciting thing to see from Travis Konechny. Somebody else whose name we've mentioned a lot is Oscar Lindblom, who is actually doing all right. He's quieted down a little bit, but he was really clicking on a line with Jacob Voracek and Nolan Patrick. He's now pointless in his last 2, but Lindblom had 2 goals, 6 assists, and 8 points in 8 games before that. He's not much of a shooter, but he can throw hits every now and again. He's more of like a stream rather than an ad. And speaking of Nolan Patrick, he's also been reasonably quiet lately. However, he's not so bad in the peripherals department. He has at least a block in 4 straight games. He has 5 hits over the last 4 games. He takes face-offs. He takes shots. He has 14 shots in his last 4 games, is getting good minutes with good line mates. He's somebody, if you're struggling in a league and you have dead weight on your roster and you want to make an ad for somebody who has some upside, Nolan Patrick might be a great choice.
Brian, thanks for the rundown on all these Philly forwards. Now everyone knows, a lot of upside on a lot of these guys. It's funny that you mentioned Oscar Lindblom. We got a tweet, I think it was a couple weeks ago, from Beerbot on Twitter saying that he thinks that Lindblom is going to be the new Yanni Gourde. He was like, that Lindblom is this season's Yanni Gourde. So far not looking like as good, but someone to keep an eye on, I guess. But okay, let's now, Brian, go to another team. We've gotten through Philly. And like I said, I want to get through the other injuries for goalies. And we're going to start with Pickard's opponent yesterday, which was the Tampa Bay Lightning, and they suffered a big blow. Andrei Vasilevsky is going to be out 4 to 6 weeks with a broken foot. This, of course, led to everyone rushing to grab backup Louis Domingue. I saw in Yahoo, he had like 10,000 plus ads. You know how you could see on the research section, like how many ads each player has? You can see who's been added the most over the past day of like all leagues on Yahoo. I've never seen a number that high, or if I have, I forgot it. So yeah, everyone wanted Domingue, and why not? Tampa's an amazing team, and he's now going to be the starting goalie in the Cupful, the Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League. We use the FAB free agent acquisition system, so everyone has a $100 budget, and you have to bid part of your budget in order to pick up free agents. My tier 2 competitor in the Cupful spent $50 of his $100 FAB budget in order to get Louis Domingue. So he went big on him, and hopefully he'll do well for him. And like, okay, but so let's look and see how Domingue has done. Like, first of all, let's give Vasilevsky some props. 9-3-1, 927 save percentage on the season. I feel like we were being like a little too cute in our Schmore Goalies Board episode. We decided that Vasilevsky is going to be a tier 2 goalie for us because he hadn't yet put together a full solid season. But I mean, you know, decent goalie, great pedigree on one of the top teams. Clearly, he's been one of the top goalies to own, no question. Anyone who didn't listen to us and drafted him as their top goalie are very happy with their choice, though obviously they're disappointed now that he's injured. Hopefully he'll come back and be fine in a month or whatever it's going to be. In the meantime, Louis Domingue, not so great. 889 save percentage in 7 games on the year. In his last 2 games since the injury, he has 2 wins, a 4-3 win at Pittsburgh and a 6-5 win at Philly. So not great numbers, but wins are wins, and those are tough matchups, like road games against big scoring teams like Pittsburgh and Philly. Brian, do you think that Domingue will earn my competitor Mike's $50 acquisition cost over the next month? The Tampa team is just so good, so you're going to get wins. The Cupful wins aren't worth that much, but still, I feel like a lot of people jumped on Domingue. If there's anyone out there who still has him available as a free agent, should they be rushing to add him?
Yes, they should, especially because most leagues value wins a little more than the Cupful does. And that's all part of if you're curious about exactly how we value our goalies, you can go to keepingkarlsson.com/KKUPFL to see all the official Cupful rules and our scoring scheme. And Elon, I feel like maybe we should add a link on there, like that links to our top division or the different Cupful divisions so people can pop in, see how players are actually ranked in these schemes. Anyway, so check that out. Let's go back to Tampa's goaltending. On Vasilevsky, going into the year, I just want to give him a little bit of props for what he's been able to do so far. Because, Elon, you talked about how he's actually been good. And going into the season, we had Vasilevsky sort of in the Matt Murray range, where we knew Vasilevsky was in a good spot on a very good team, but hadn't seen enough consistent performances to want to actually call Vasilevsky a tier 1 goalie. But he's making a really strong case now, one that Matt Murray has absolutely failed to make. So if Vasilevsky can come back and keep this up to some extent rest of season, there's not going to be much debate about where Vasilevsky lands in next year's Smart Goalies board. Although the funny thing is, even with a 927 save percentage, Vasilevsky is actually still playing below his expected save percentage at 5-on-5. He is picking up all these save percentage points by shining on the penalty kill, a 943 shorthanded save percentage, whereas like anything above a 900 is kind of ridiculous. So that's not going to last, but Vasilevsky still could hang in with a save percentage close to or above 920, even when that penalty kill save percentage regresses. Maybe if you want, you can try to make a lateral move in net by selling Vasilevsky's 927 for another top goalie who you feel you can rely on about as much and upgrade another piece in your lineup. But this wasn't supposed to be about him. It was just a good opportunity to get into him. Let's talk about Domingue. He's not a very good goalie, but he's on an excellent team. And the good news for Domingue, as it is for Vasilevsky, is that Tampa Bay is only giving up more expected goals against per game at even strength than Boston. So they are the second stingiest team defensively, according to expected goals. So that bodes well for anyone in the Tampa crease. So go ahead and add Domingue, but it is a little bit like a Kemper situation, or the one we've seen in Arizona the last little while. Domingue, of course, has better chance at a win than Kemper and has better defense in front of him, but there's still a non-zero and probably not even like, higher than 40% chance that Domingue is going to screw up all your numbers in a bad start. Playing for Tampa helps mitigate that risk, but it's still there.
Yeah, I mean, he did, like I said, led in 5 goals in his last game, still got the win. So it kind of depends how things count. Like, you want him, like, he's worth owning in all leagues. Like, in Cupful, he's owned in all 16 divisions. We've got this amazing spreadsheet by Marcus, which he updates every week for us before the show. So in all the Cupful divisions, all 16, he's owned. He's owned in like 50% of Yahoo leagues. So I'm not saying that he shouldn't be owned, but keep in mind his value might not be so high. If you're in a league that counts, let's say, categories league, wins, save percentage, and goals against average, he's going to help you in wins, but he might actually be below average in those other two. So you got to keep that in mind. Since we're on Tampa, Brian, Brian, you obviously know the answer because you saw the preparation document, but people in the chat room or people listening want to try to guess who's leading Tampa Bay in both goals and points right now. I guess there's a bit of a delay on Yahoo, so I will stall a little bit by saying it's not Nikita Kucherov.
What?
It's not Steven Stamkos.
What?
It's not, I don't know, JT Miller.
Is it Victor? It must be Victor Hedman.
It's not Hedman. Well, he was injured for a bit. It's not, what was the guy? Yanni Gourde, that beer bot's favorite.
It's not Matthew Joseph?
It's not Matthew Joseph. It's Braden
Anthony
Point.
Cirelli?
Well, now I said it over your guesses, so people know. It's Braden Point. Point gets points. He's so good. He's got 14 goals and 24 points in 20 games. That's a 57 goal and a 98 point pace for Braden frickin' Point. Was this, like, Brian, the last season that Point will be available after the top 2 rounds in fantasy drafts? I got Point in the Cacuffle in round 10, and I'm pretty sure right now if I got offered Stamkos for Point 1-for-1, I think I'd decline. Like, is that too crazy?
I think it's a little crazy. I think you're right that it's the last time you're going to get any kind of value on Point in your draft. The same way that you aren't getting value on Vincent Trocheck anymore. Point is a second-line center who gets points like a first-line center. One of the reasons why he's been able to lead Tampa in points so far today, it drives me nuts we need to just start calling him Braden. Point and points.
It's great. You're doing great, Brian. Keep it up.
Braden had 14 goals on 50 shots. 28% shooting percentage. About a quarter of his shots are going in at 5-on-5. And Braden P has actually scored 6 times on 13 power play shots. What? So look, you and I both were very happy going into the season to stake our claim and say Braden Point is going to be in the 70-point club. It's going to happen. And we've been pumping his tires for a while, like seeing him on track for this. And he's definitely a very good player. But I don't think Braden P is quite this good. If you're looking at a 1-for-1 Stamkos offer and you're the Point owner, keep in mind Stamkos is feeling the effects of a low shooting percentage, low on ice shooting percentage, slightly lower IEPP than he should, and he's still managing a 70-point pace. So 1-for-1, it could be lateral. Like, I'll go that far, but I think that maybe if you're the Point owner and you want to try and make that move for Stamkos or whatever, the side getting Stamkos back can probably ask for Stamkos plus, and that would be a good way to try and win that deal.
Yeah, that could be a smart move. That's all I was saying was if I got that offer 1-for-1, I'd think twice. Maybe I'd ask for, if you want points so much, maybe give me a little more. I'm not saying he's untouchable. Come at me, Cacuffle tier 2 with your trade offers for Braden Point. You could have come at me a little while ago with trade offers for Erik Karlsson, and I might have accepted in like a moment of darkness and regret, but you missed your chance. Now I'm loving life right now with these guys. Okay, but
what's the opposite of tilt?
Yeah, it's just like, call it Elon, because that's my definition right now.
Or how about even keel for Erik Karlsson, saying EK?
Even keel 65. Ridiculous. Let's go to another big goalie injury, this time to LA. Jonathan Quick already is on the long-term IR, and he's apparently skating, or he's going to start skating in 10 days. I don't know, like maybe Jonathan Quick will be back at some point. But then news came out that Jack Campbell had a torn meniscus in his knee and needed surgery, so he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks now. It's too bad. Like, Jack Campbell had really been settling in, and it looked like the Kings season was maybe going to start turning around, along with, like, Dustin Brown returning and Campbell doing well. Like, Campbell was coming off 4 really good starts, bringing his season save percentage to a .923 save percentage in 13 games overall. I'm pretty bummed for the guy. Like, he was finally getting this opportunity and he was running with it. Now he has to have this surgery. Who knows, maybe by the time he gets back, like, Jonathan Quick will be back. So kind of a bummer. Anyway, someone who definitely didn't run with his opportunity was Peter Budaj, who got the next start versus Toronto.
Go again. With this opportunity.
Someone who didn't run with his opportunity was Peter Budaj, who got the next start versus Toronto on Tuesday and was absolutely terrible. He stopped only 15 of 19 before getting pulled for new backup and probably now starter Calvin Peterson. who's a guy I've never heard of before, I'll admit, before going into this show. Maybe some prospects people know about him. Maybe Brian, you'll tell us all about this guy. So Peterson stopped 15 of 16 in the remainder of that Leafs game, and then he stopped 34 of 35 against Chicago on Friday in a 2-1 win. He was actually looking good also yesterday versus Nashville until the third period, where the wheels fell off, and he ended up stopping only 38 of 42, which isn't terrible, in a 5-3 loss to the Predators. Hard to blame him. Like, he's on the second half of a back-to-back where he's played both games, and he's against the Nashville Predators in his second ever NHL start. I'm not going to ding Calvin Peterson for that bad game. So, Brian, who is Calvin Peterson? I read on Twitter that he has a bit of a pedigree. He's for sure the new starter on LA now, right? Like, I think so. Like, I can't imagine Peter Budaj's got another run in him at this point. And my side question is, Brian, did we add the wrong Calvin? Because we grabbed Pickard in our joint league when we could have added Peterson. I feel like I kind of want to swap Pickard for Peterson ASAP if we still can tomorrow morning. We're out of moves for the week. What do you think about this guy, Calvin Peterson?
Well, first off, his friends called him Cal. Second off, 38 out of 42 stops is like Craig Anderson-like. If you have that big a workload and you still manage to stop over 90% of the shots, congratulations. You did very well. Who is Cal Peterson? Former 5th-round pick of the Buffalo Sabres back in 2013. He turned 24 just last month, now seeing the first NHL action of his career. I suppose the pedigree that you're mentioning, Elon, I'd be curious to, like, do you remember exactly what you saw?
I don't know, like people saying that he was supposed to be one of the good pieces in the LA organization that would one day be good. I feel like that's all I saw.
So I think he's their top goaltending prospect, which does not necessarily account for much. I mean, Jack Campbell would be his competition in that category. He was drafted, which helps any goalie, it's rare for there to be even one or two pedigree having goalie prospects in each draft class. So maybe there's some stock in that. Anyway, to his performance as a professional, Cal Peterson hasn't performed in any particularly special way. He had a 9-10 last season in his first pro season with the AHL's Ontario Reign and had an 881 in 10 games this year before being called up. That 9-10 in his first year is actually kind of okay. But obviously he did not outplay or outduel Jack Campbell and win that job. Or the Kings were like, well, Peterson's the one we want playing more often. It's really hard to know exactly how they made that decision and how they value the two. I think Peterson now, in his current situation in LA, with Campbell out, with Quick out, Peter Budaj does not pose a whole lot of competition for him. So if I'm picking between Calvin's, Peterson, and Pickard, I'm going to lean Peterson. Calvin Pickard has a little more competition from Lyon, and Pickard has also already blown it a bunch, so Peterson is starting fresher. So I think Peterson is probably the better choice between the two, but I can't say with confidence that he's actually going to be any more reliable than Pickard.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we don't know. Like, Adam in the chat room here is saying, eye test on Peterson says he's not an NHL goalie. I feel like it's been a couple games. Let's see how he does. The numbers are looking okay so far, but very small sample size, of course. Brian, by the way, John in the chat asked Jeff Carter, like, he wanted us to talk about him. So it's not scheduled for the show, but John, you showed up for the show, so I'm going to give it to you if you'd like. So Jeff Carter at this point in the year has 10 points in 19 games. Not good. I don't know, Brian, like, should people be holding on to him? I feel like you've always loved Jeff Carter. I feel like we've talked about him somewhat recently, but at this point, he's playing like second line center, playing with Toffoli and Kovalchuk, like top power play. Like, he's in a decent spot. LA's not scoring goals overall. I see he has a low shooting percentage so far, 7.4 shooting percentage when he's been like above 10 for the past couple of years. So I see reasons why Jeff Carter is going to do a little bit better, but also like LA's having some troubles right now.
I'm going to just take a minute here.
Okay.
While you got into that, I was also, we have new copy, I think, for SeatGeek that I didn't get in there.
Whatever. It's always this. It doesn't matter. They don't listen anyways. Don't worry about that.
Elon, we appreciate our sponsors very much.
I do. Hey, today
it's only for November 26th.
So it's okay. Just let's keep going. We're doing great.
Okay. All right.
So I said Jeff Carter. You heard it all.
Yeah. Just a second. Loading rate stats. Okay. Yeah, one thing hurting Jeff Carter is that 7.4 shooting percentage. Last year, he shot 15%. The year before, 13%. Really, the lowest in his career he's ever shot is 10%. So this is 2.5% short of that, which is not good for him. but he's also kind of responsible for not having taken enough shots too. Right now, his shots per 60 rates and shot attempt per 60 rates are the lowest, well, ever of his career. And one thing we've always really liked about Jeff Carter is like, yeah, he's going to throw a lot of shots on net. Don't worry about it. It's going to help him get close to 30 goals. And even in LA, and that's not what's happened. Now, to be fair, beyond his shooting percentage, he has a little bit of bad luck happening. His IPP at even strength is just 44.4444444444 and so on percent. And his on-ice shooting percentage, well, it's actually kind of reasonable. But there are two reasons why Jeff Carter, there are at least two variance flags for why Jeff Carter is not performing up to snuff and only at a 43-point pace. I would hope he can get back up to 55, but if he doesn't bring his shot rates back up in line to even what they've been at other low points of his career up until now, I think it would be really hard to count on him for the 60 plus that we've been able to.
Okay, so there you go. Hope that helps. Don't give up on him. If he was available in free agency in one of my leagues, I think I'd add him. Though also centers, you always have to discount them a little bit just because there's usually more centers available. So I think he has upside to do better, but also maybe he's not going to get back up to that sure 60-point guy that he's been year in and year out. Brian, let's go to another team that had an In-N-Out burger or a belly button or an injouchery as Victor. So we're going to settle this all for next week. I'm going to ask in the Facebook group for the patrons, and we're going to come up with an official name that I'll say from now on. But yeah, so Anaheim, like always, losing people, gaining people back. It's like an infirmary over there for the Ducks. Okay, so Patrick Eaves is back on the IR. I feel bad for him. I feel bad for him just like I feel bad for Jack Campbell. He probably worked so hard, and for so long to get back into the team. Then he played 2 games. Now he's back on the IR. Hopefully he'll come back. Not really fantasy relevant. The more fantasy relevant injury is Cam Fowler, who ouch, he got hit in the face with a puck, and he underwent surgery on Friday for a complex right facial fracture involving his orbital bone, cheekbone, and upper jaw bone. Oh, I feel tingles just reading this. It sucks. Poor Cam Fowler. I hope he still looks okay. He's a handsome guy.
It sounds much worse than a simple fracture.
For sure. Yeah. So also, of course, ouch to Cam Fowler's fantasy owners. He's been doing exactly what we all expected from him when we drafted him, right? Not better, not worse, I'd say. Maybe in the blocks, actually, he's been better. So 10 points in 19 games, or solid 43-point pace, 47 blocks in those 19 games. So over a couple blocks per game is very welcome in leagues where that's counted. But okay, so Fowler's out. That's a bummer. Based on the last 2 games, it looked like Brandon Montour and Hampus Lindholm would fight for Fowler's power play time, though news just came out today that Hampus Lindholm is on the IR. I think at the time of recording, we still don't even know the reason. It's just by the way, Lindholm's on the IR. We don't know why. So I guess Anaheim, they're playing right now. I'm looking on ESPN at the score here. I only see 5 defensemen on the team. I don't know. Maybe they have another defenseman that just this platform hasn't added into their system yet. But Larson, Manson, Montour, Pedersen. There's a Pedersen on Anaheim. Did you know that? M. Pedersen, Marcus, maybe Wilinski. This team is they're winning though. Actually, 1-0 right now, and the goal was scored by Brandon Montour. So this guy, I feel like he's had a super disappointing season. Hasn't been great at all. But 6 points in 21 games going into today. But in the last game, he played 29 minutes. He took 7 shots, had 6 blocks. He's probably a sure thing for top power play now. I don't see who else it would be, especially with Lindholm out. So I feel like people need to just go and grab Brandon Montour, unless you're just going to tell us, Brian, that Anaheim's not going to score any goals and it's not going to matter who's playing. Maybe it'll be or maybe it could be a Nick Leddy situation where even though they're on the top power play, they don't do anything. But Montour's someone we used to think was going to be good. Huge disappointment this season, but he's going to get I could see him playing 29, 30 minutes every game if they have no one else.
Yeah, Montour is definitely a guy who's getting a big bump here. He was already going to get it with Fowler out. Now with Hampus Lindholm out, he's going to get even more of a bump, or at least that bump is going to sustain better. We saw immediate dividends from him suddenly playing nearly 30 minutes in a night, picking up a lot of shots and blocks. And the nice thing about Montour too is you can generally count on him for a couple shots, a hit, and a block as a baseline, even with minutes in the low 20s. So he could be very valuable in peripheral leagues. Remember, Montour was the guy who was supposed to already have this job. He took a run at it last year. He actually had it for a while, but he didn't claim it out of camp. It was Fowler, but so it makes sense that Brandon Montour is next in line to grab the mantle. I guess with Hampus Lindholm out, if you're looking beyond Brandon Montour, you might be looking at Josh Manson as another option to try and pick up some depth points and peripherals from the Anaheim blue line. Real shame that Hampus Lindholm is out. Not that he was going to get this opportunity, because he never has in Anaheim. but he had 11 shots in his last 2 games. Also, Hampus Lindholm, the bad news is that he had just 2 points in his last 9 before getting injured. Elon, remember there was a time where you were wondering if he could get 40, 45 points, but I think that 2 points in 9 game stretch brought him back down to earth, where when he returns, we can expect 35 points from Hampus Lindholm with some potentially valuable peripherals. It's a real shame that he's not here to cash in while Fowler's out, though maybe he'll still beat him back into the lineup.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised, especially if Montour struggles. I could see Lindholm coming back and being the guy for as long as Fowler is out. So we'll have to wait and see if someone drops Lindholm and you have IR spots. I wouldn't mind stashing him if you can. But for now, I think you got to grab Brandon Montour and hope that this is finally his time. Still on Anaheim, the one piece of good news, because I said it wasn't in-jout jury. It was an In-N-Out Burger. Okay, I'll stop saying all the things.
Oh my gosh.
They're terrible. Okay, the one good news is that Ondrej Kase finally made his season debut after missing the start with a concussion. No points in 3 games so far going into today, but 15 shots and goal in those 3 games. That's not nothing. He was playing with Henrique, but again, I could see things changing around with the Lions, all these injuries and them not winning, not scoring goals. So it's hard to rely too much on what the Lions will be. I feel like it's even possible. Maybe at some point you get Getzlaf, Raquel, and Kase on the top line. Maybe Pontus Aberg gets bumped at some point. So I feel like there could be some upside here, especially for a guy that's taking all these shots. Don't forget about him in your free agency. He's probably not worth adding right now, but someone I definitely would have on my watch list.
Yeah, you should be watching Ondrej Kase. We hope that eventually he ends up on the top line in a place where he can actually realize the potential that we outlined heading into the season. Because if Kase isn't on the top line, any other spot in the Anaheim lineup is pretty bad. Adam Henrique is not really a centerman that you want to be working with full time. The problem for Kase is that Pontus Aberg still doing all right on the top line. 3 points in his last 5 games, which seems like enough to be holding his spot, I guess. But I expect Kase to ascend at some point onto line 1, and anyone who has him at that point can reasonably hope to be rewarded as he plays with Getzlaf and Raquel. It's nice that at least Ondrej Kase, if you're holding him and waiting, he's taking shots on goal for you, picking up those huge shot numbers in low minutes too, which is also really promising. Looks like he's been told to fire at will. Hopefully he'll continue doing that and get a chance to do it on the top line.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we saw from Victor Arvidsson before he broke out, a lot of shots in not many minutes. This is what we saw from, who's the guy this year that we've been saying was the Victor Arvidsson?
Fiala?
No, remember there was a guy who I said it's breaking out this year, and we said we knew it was going to happen because he used to take a lot of shots.
Oh, no. Zucker?
No, forget it. I'll look it up and remember. Brian, I was really banking on you there.
We've said this before, but I can't remember.
There's a player that we've talked about on the show being he's finally breaking out this year, and Timo Meier on San Jose. That's who it is. Okay. Anyways, we've seen it from Meier, we've seen it from Arvidsson. Maybe this is Ondrej Kase. Maybe next year is going to be his year to break out after 1 year of having great shot numbers in low minutes. In the chat here, we're seeing Matt asking, so am I dropping Heiskanen, I should say, for Montour? I think, yeah, in a 1 year league, especially because Esa Lindell was on the top power play. So I think I would make that swap. Yeah, Lindell had a good game today. We'll get to Dallas a little bit later. Brian, though, how about if you're in Dallas, you want to go to Dallas, might as well go see a game. This is a terrible segue, but yeah, let's talk about our sponsor for this week's episode, which are our friends over at SeatGeek. It's always fun to go to the game. Like I mentioned before, how Adam said in the chat that Peterson on LA, he's looking good with his numbers, but the eye test tells me that he's not good. Why not get the eye test in person? Watch a hockey game live. It's the best thing, right? And the problem, though, with going to a game live is getting tickets can be complicated. There's hundreds of sites, varying levels of reliability, tons of fees on the official sites, and then you never know what you're getting with these resale sites. But SeatGeek, it's you could trust them. They pull millions of tickets into one place. You can easily find the seats you want for a price you're willing to pay. They're, as you know, there's nothing quite like being there in person, and SeatGeek will get you closer to the action for great value. They have a guarantee on everything you buy, so you could buy with confidence. I really like sorting the tickets by value for specific games. You can sort by price, but you can also sort by value to see what am I getting? Is this actually a good deal or not? And it's even fun to just download the app, browse through what's going on. I'm looking at what's going on in Toronto. You could get Leafs versus the Blue Jackets for $57 on November 19th. Maybe I'll go. When is November 19th? What's today?
Today's November tomorrow.
Maybe I'll go. Why not? I can with SeatGeek. It'll be so easy. And some people could even go for cheaper than $57 because we have a discount for new users. Brian, why don't you tell them how?
Yeah, Keeping Karlsson listeners get $20 off their very first SeatGeek purchase. All you need to do is download the SeatGeek app, enter the promo code KEEPING before you buy your tickets. That's promo code KEEPING, and you'll get $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Better value on already great value. SeatGeek. Life's an event. We have the tickets.
Yes, they do. Go get those tickets. Okay, Nashville. We were just talking about Victor Arvidsson. What a fun thing. I didn't even plan for this. Injury. We're still in the injury section of the show. We're going to be here for a while, unfortunately. So Nashville's in some injury trouble. Victor Arvidsson's going to miss 6 to 8 weeks with a broken thumb. PK Subban is on the IR with an upper body injury. I think we don't really know how long he's going to be out yet. But with Arvidsson out, Kevin Fiala got a shot on the top line with Forsberg and Johansson, but he was bumped yesterday by Craig Smith, who, until further notice, is now both a line one and power play one guy. So Craig Smith, man, like Brian, you love him, and now I imagine you love him even more, right? He had no points yesterday, but he's taken 3+ shots in each of his last 5 games, which is fantastic. Every once in a while, he has I feel like he's one of these guys that gets nothing for 3 games and then gets 1 goal and 2 assists the next game to make his overall numbers look pretty good. So I kind of like Craig Smith in this situation. Kevin Fiala, by the way, like he got that opportunity on the top line, couldn't cash in. He got bumped to, the second line yesterday, was playing with Turris and Kalle Jarnkrok, and Fiala had been on a modest 4-game point streak, but he's pointless in 2 games. And he got benched for most of yesterday's game versus LA. He only played 6 minutes and 41 seconds. So it's really hard for anyone to justify holding on to Kevin Fiala at this point, I would say. Brian, like if someone has Fiala on their roster and Craig Smith is available, is that an easy swap at this point? And of course, I will add to that if Kyle Turris is available, I feel like he's the easy choice over both of them. Kyle Turris had a power play goal yesterday, brought him to 15 points in 20 games. He's old, reliable. He's good, but also Craig Smith in a really good spot right now.
Swapping in Craig Smith for Kevin Fiala is, an easy move to make. Fiala's come so short of expectations, both in the way he's been deployed and the points he's actually produced, that he's not, in most leagues, he's not someone you need to be holding on tight so nobody else grabs him in case he does catch on. It's unlikely anyone else in your league wants to jump on Fiala while he's on line 2, not getting long looks at line 1, and he's doing very little with the minutes on whichever line he lands on. And now Fiala's probably even further off people's radars after the Kalle Jarnkrok hat trick last night. Kalle Jarnkrok loves to have these big games and go on big runs. Fun hat trick, by the way. 1 goal at even strength, 1 on the power play, 1 shorthanded. There must be a special name for that, but I don't know it offhand. Anyway, you all know already that if you're dropping Kevin Fiala, I like Craig Smith, so I'm happily going to add him to my roster, top line, top power play. But going back to your final point, Elan Turris is probably the guy you want to look at first. He's less line dependent than both these guys and doing just fine for himself as the second line center.
Yeah, and of course, Turris is a center, so there might be a reason you want to add a Craig Smith. If you need a winger, you'll get more games out of a winger than a center. Over on defense, like I said, Subban is out. Ryan Ellis is someone interesting. We've had some questions about him recently. He's kind of been having a disappointing season overall, but he did get 58.3% of the team's power play time yesterday and capitalized with a power play assist and an even strength assist as well. So he had a good game with Subban out. He's now up to 10 points in 20 games on the season, which is a 41-point pace, far from his 60-point pace from last season. He only played 44 games, but he was really great in all those games. So Brian, moving forward, what are you expecting from Ryan Ellis for the rest of the way, both with like Subban out, but then also in general? I feel like you have him, right? In the cupful?
I do, and he's been disappointing, but not so disappointing relative to what we expected from him this season. Ryan Ellis in our almanac, we knew last year's 60-point pace was not going to repeat, or was not likely to repeat, but we did wonder aloud if Ellis could get to 50 points, if he was able to keep up some of what were the highest shooting and shot attempt rates of his career. We love seeing lots of shots from Ryan Ellis because along with guys like Jared Spurgeon, Dustin Byfuglien, Shea Weber, and now Thomas Chabot, as we mentioned on last week's show, Ellis is one of those defensemen who's at the top of the heap in converting his shots into goals, closer to the shooting percent success rate of a forward than a defenseman. But unfortunately for Ryan Ellis, his shot rates have not kept up to last year's pace. He's down about half a shot per game, averaging just about 2 each per night. And that's not a function of Ryan Ellis playing any less. In fact, he's playing a little more than last year. But unfortunately, Ellis has not kept up his shot and shot attempt rates. All that said, Ryan Ellis is still probably still expect 40 from him, maybe even 45 points. Keep in mind, Ellis has actually scored 0 times on 38 tries. So even with lower shot volume, his career history would suggest that he could have picked up about 3 goals by now. Ellis's IPP is also a bit low. So you have 2 choices if you own Ryan Ellis, and it depends on the depth of your league. You could cut bait and wait for him to pick up his game, or at least start scoring a couple more points. Or if you're in a deeper league, I think he makes a pretty good buy low candidate. If his current owner is convinced that at this point last year was a total fluke, can't be relied on for more than 35, 40 points, maybe you can sneak him away.
Interesting. I don't know. But maybe I'll be curious to know how that projection goes on, because I was going to say maybe like try to sell high. Like he had a couple points last game. Maybe if he has another good game, and he's doing well with Subban out, maybe that would be a good time to try to ship him away before people realize maybe he's not as good as he was last year. But yeah, he's a tricky one because, it's always tricky to depend on a defenseman who's not like a top power play guy to get you like 50 plus points. It's very rare that happens, but Ryan Ellis did it last year. And yeah, he's someone I'd like to follow and maybe check back in on in a couple of weeks or maybe in a month and see how he's doing. Let's go to another injury. Pittsburgh, Patrice Bergeron is out with an upper body injury. We don't know yet the severity. I saw like one of the notes somewhere said it could be a long time, but apparently like he's going to Boston. They're going to look at him and then figure it out. But like, that's a real bummer, right? I have him, Brian, in my PHL league, and like he's been amazing. 26 points in 19 games. Huge blow to anyone who's been enjoying all this production from Patrice Bergeron. Yesterday, the Bruins went with like the lines were pretty different than usual, right? So they split up Krejci and Marchand, Pasternak and Marchand. So they were going Krejci, Pasternak, and Anders Bjork, and then Marchand with DeBrusk and Joachim Nordstrom. They got the win 2-1 over Dallas. I feel like these lines will shift around a bit, but I'm curious, Brian, what's your general guess as to who's helped or hurt by Patrice Bergeron being out of the lineup? Obviously, it opens up a line one spot. It opens up a top power play spot. Let me throw some names at you, Brian. Actually, I'll just throw you a ton of names, and then you could just sort of, at the end, decide which ones you want to talk about, which ones you think are going to be affected. Like, you got David Pasternak, first of all, having a monster season himself. He has 17 goals and 25 points in 20 games. 17 goals in 20 games is insane. What is that, like a 70-goal pace? Like, close to it, I think. Patron Joshua asked if he has any underlying numbers to be worried about. If yes, got to imagine they would only be exasperated with Bergeron out of the lineup, right? I'd imagine he's being helped by playing with Patrice Bergeron all the time. Then you got Jake DeBrusk. He scored yesterday. Now has 5 goals and 2 assists in his last 7 games. So he's really heating up after a slow start. He saw top power play time yesterday with Marchand, Pasternak, Krejci, and Krug. If DeBrusk is a free agent, now might be a good time to pounce, I think. Like, he may have been drafted in a lot of leagues after a really good year last year and a lot of hype, but then maybe he had a disappointing start. He was dropped. I feel like now would be a good time to add him. Or would you maybe rather add someone like David Krejci, who's been having a fantastic season? He has 16 points in 20 games. Plus, like I said, he was actually on the top power play, which is something very rare. But I guess that's the only way that Krejci gets on PP1 is if Patrice Bergeron is out of the lineup. So I feel like he might be someone who benefits from losing Bergeron. He's the one I feel like I'm most confident in him. Only, even though at the same time he's probably going to do worse just because he's been doing so well. Like, how can he even do any better? So what do you think of these guys? Anyone especially helped or hurt with Bergeron out of the lineup? And once again, condolences to anyone who lost Bergeron themselves. I'm one of you. We're in this together.
Hopefully he's going to come back before very long. But Pasternak is on pace for 70 goals this year. Well, 69.7. So generally we round up. Anyway, we're not going to get whatever. The point has been made. And is any struggle that he's having, any unsustainable luck going to be exacerbated by Bergeron being out? I don't know. Here's the thing with Pasternak is that he probably has a few too many goals, but that's really about it. Pretty incredible that Pasternak has just 8 assists in 20 games while playing with Bergeron and Marchand. He has a bit of a low IPP. So, like, I'm not terribly worried about Pasternak's production, like falling off a lot or this being awfully unsustainable. 50 goals seems perfectly reasonable from him right now, the way he's clicking. I think Bergeron being absent is going to hurt because Bergeron helps create space and chances, but Pasternak's production is not like a house of cards propped up completely by Bergeron. Pasternak is doing a fair amount of the work himself, but of course, Bergeron is such a good player that him being out is absolutely going to have an impact on the Boston offense and defense as a whole. We'll start off with Jake DeBrusk, who's been on fire ever since my cupful opponent last week, Brendan, added him. And I was like, great, good job, Brendan. Glad you wasted an ad on Jake DeBrusk, like scoffing to myself. And then, DeBrusk went nuts. He had 6 points in 7 games, like you said, Elon, including 5 goals. We do like DeBrusk when he's getting the deployment, which he is right now. 5 goals on 13 shots won't continue, but 55 points still isn't out of the question if he can hang on to that top power play role for a substantial time. Between he and Krejci, I think I would prefer David Krejci, who probably has a similar, albeit less exciting ceiling and is not quite as line dependent as Jake DeBrusk is. The problem with Krejci is that he really is limited in his deployment. Like, he'll never be more than a temporary fixture on the top power play, and his line mates are never 2 great guys. So before getting too deep into the rest of the lineup and figuring out what's going to happen with Bergeron out, I mean, we'll see if he misses a couple games. We'll get a look at the lines and we'll update you next week. But if the lines you mentioned hold, Elon, and just to summarize, you said the Bruins went with Krejci, Pasternak, and Bjork, and then Marchand, DeBrusk, and Joachim Nordstrom. If that holds, obviously Bjork and Krejci are helped, while Marchand and Pasternak are potentially hurt as they both lose their elite centerman, and Pasternak and Marchand become the guy who is charged with driving the offense on their respective lines, which they're sort of in charge of doing already, but they didn't just lose Bergeron, they lost each other also, so it should be an interesting challenge to see whether or not they can take it up.
Okay, Brian, great analysis. You're very insightful, and we'll have to see what happens with all of these guys. You're also a ridiculous person. I don't know how in the same sentence, in the same word, you kept switching between DeBrusk and DeBrusk. Like, at least pick one and go with it. Why do you keep changing it?
Jake DeBrusk.
So weird. Okay. Also on Boston, the defense is not looking good. Zdeno Chara is out with an MCL injury. He's going to miss at least 4 weeks. He joins McAvoy, Moore, Carlo, Kevin Miller, like all these guys are injured. Like, this is bad for the Boston Bruins defensemen. They still won in their last game. It's amazing. Obviously not a huge fantasy impact for Chara being out, like in terms of like he's not a guy on anyone's rosters who you're depending on for points. But gotta imagine this isn't good. Like, this is going to come back to catch these Bruins goalies eventually, right? And speaking of whom, Tuukka Rask returned from his leave of absence and had a great game on Friday. He stopped 36 of 37 versus Dallas. So maybe he got his head straight, figured out what he needed to. Maybe Rask is back, or maybe it's a one-game sample size and we shouldn't get too excited and he's going to blow it soon. This had some Halak owners very worried because he got destroyed by Colorado earlier in the week, but he put those fears to rest. I think so, at least, with a 2-1 win over Arizona yesterday. But anyways, I guess at this point, if Rask has really come back a new man, this competition is far from over. I feel like we got some heat. I forget who it was. One of our patrons said that we were like too quick to say that the job is like, like Halak's the starter now and Rask is the backup. Like, seems now like with Rask having taken this leave of absence, maybe we're like back at square one, but I'm not worried about Halak. Like, he had that one bad game and then I saw him dropped like so much on Yahoo. I was very surprised. Like, well, Colorado does that to teams, right? They destroy people. But then, yeah, like I said, Halak was better. So I don't know. Do you have a sense on this goalie situation right now, or is it the same old story? Like, who knows right now?
Who knows right now is that, like, it's the same old story. Yes, Yaroslav Halak is better, but the Bruins are going to look at a bad Halak start or a good Rask start as reason to get Rask back in net. That's clearly part of their MO here. Like, they're happy to have Halak run the show while Rask is inconsistent. But the moment it seems that Halak is not the best option, even for a day, they'll be happy to give Rask a shot. I don't think Rask, though, is ever going to hold on to like the spotlight or the starter's crease long enough so that Halak ever falls below 1B status. It will be curious to see, though, just how Tuukka Rask performs now that he's being rested more often than any other time in his career. Is that going to help him sustain a little bit more consistency, a little more consistency in good performances? Or is he just going to still be the same old kind of half-broken Tuukka Rask that we've seen the last several years? It will be an interesting plotline for anyone who thinks this is Halak's job, period. The fact that the Bruins really seem to want Rask to play any opportunity possible and that he's getting a lot of rest, those two things could coincide to give him a few more starts than you might have anticipated.
Yeah, and we'll have to see. Like, maybe Rask will be good. Maybe he'll be bad. I tweeted recently, almost like, not like this bluntly, but kind of like, stop asking us goalie questions on Twitter because we just don't know. Like, I don't know. Every goalie is insane. Like, Carey Price is bad. Corey Crawford was bad. Then all of a sudden he's good. Like, every goalie is going to be like, like, I'm sure in a couple months from now, like, you're going to think to yourself, I need to upgrade my goalies. Matt Murray's too terrible. I'm going to trade Murray and like a really strong piece to get back whoever, like Bobrovsky. And then in a couple of months from now, we're going to be doing a podcast about how Bobrovsky's doing terribly and Matt Murray is like destroying the league. Like, it's so hard to predict goalies. And so I don't know, like right now it seems like Rask and Halak are going to get even-ish starts for the next little while and we'll go from there. Brian, is that too blunt? Like, am I wrong? I just don't know how to answer these goalie questions.
No, I think that's totally fair. And we're getting a lot because of the mercurial nature of goalies that is really, it seems even more so the case this year than last and the year before that too. So yeah, we don't know. We can take our best guess. Elon, I think you've been handling them all very gracefully on Twitter. You can keep asking us, but we obviously don't know a whole lot more than what we say on the show.
Yeah, I might start using the shrug emoji a little bit more. I like that, and I'm going to use it. Not like the actual emoji, like the ASCII shrug. It's very cute, I think. The one thing I will say is maybe don't like try to upgrade your goalie, quote unquote, in a 2-for-1 trade where you're sending away a good forward. I'd almost recommend like keep your crappy goalie as long as they're a starter. Obviously, if they've been bumped for being a starting goalie, that's a whole other thing. But like, unless it's Corey Schneider also. But like, keep your crappy goalie, keep your good skater, because you never know if in a month from now that goal is actually going to be good. Okay, so some more belly buttoning. Let's go to Washington. They've had a few injuries lately. All of them seem pretty short term though. Holtby, Kuznetsov, Oshie, they're all day-to-day at the moment. I think they're going to be back soon, though, so not worth digging too much into the impact of them being gone. Phoenix Copley has been in and been doing okay in Holtby's absence. One name that the Caps got back into the lineup, though, was Tom Wilson, who had his suspension shortened. He came back to a pretty plumb spot, line one, and then eventually also power play one once Oshie and Kuznetsov were out, and Wilson had a goal in his return, nothing versus Winnipeg on Wednesday, and then 2 assists, including a power play assist on Friday versus Colorado. I think Washington's playing today. Is that right, Brian? I don't know. Like, I think they are. Maybe they're not. Okay, so fine. Forget that. But yeah, that's what Wilson's been doing good lately. 3 points in 3 games, like I said. He also threw 3 hits on Friday, which is a big reason why you have him on your roster. Got to imagine he's like a must-own in Bangers leagues where you're benefiting from his hits because he's a top-line, top power play guy. And like, Brian, I know you kind of hate him. Like, you probably don't want to say it, but I feel like there's an argument that he should probably also be owned in most like points-only leagues. Like, great deployment. He's producing so far. And don't forget that this guy, I know you're ready to like come up with all the reasons why this wasn't sustainable, but like he did have 15 points in 21 playoff games last season. Like, are you mad at me for even suggesting this? But I feel like Tom Wilson, I'd want him on my roster. I feel dumb for not having added him in a bunch of my leagues, like maybe a day or two. Like, it came out of nowhere that his suspension was going to be shortened. I had him like on my radar that I would add him maybe like after 18 of the 20 games. But yeah, I didn't get him, and I kind of wish I did.
Okay. I'm not mad about it, but if I hear 15 points in 21 playoff games again, I might get mad. I've that number is burned into my brain the same way it was at one point when Troy Brouwer had a similar playoff run and Dave Bolland, and this is the class of players with which Tom Wilson belongs, except Tom Wilson is a worse person for the things he attempts to do on the ice. Before we get too excited about what Tom Wilson might be able to do this season, with this start. And Elon, I just want to say I appreciate it. Like, we have to do our due diligence. So even if I don't like Tom Wilson, we do need to at least address on the show his fantasy value. Back before these last playoffs that you just referenced, Tom Wilson set a career high in regular season points with 35 of them as a forward.
I know, but I want to interrupt because you said this in the almanac. I get it, but he wasn't playing all season on the top line with Kuznetsov and Ovechkin,
so
right?
Here's my comparison. Tom Wilson is like Michael Furland, but Michael Furland with Gaudreau and Monahan, who like that wasn't working that well. And I think Tom Wilson is also a worse hockey player than Michael Furland. So maybe Tom Wilson can take some kind of a step forward like Furland has. He's just 24 years old. I guess there's still a chance, but in all likelihood, Elon, Tom Wilson is picking up points the same way you or I would in the NHL by just being sent over the boards with Ovechkin and Backstrom and Karlsson and Kuznetsov. Him getting top power play time is a real head scratcher for me. Tom Wilson had never seen a lick of power play time before, let alone on the top unit. But I imagine that does not last much longer than Oshie and Kuznetsov are out of the lineup.
Yeah, for sure. Top power play, definitely not going to last. But I feel like that top line spot is his to lose, right? Like he was playing there all playoffs long. He's going to stay there until there's a reason to take him off.
Jacob Vrana should be there instead.
Fair enough. Also, tell me, is this a hot take? I don't know. Like, is it unfair of us to be saying that Tom Wilson is a bad person? Now you're going to get mad at me. Like, obviously he does like bad things on the ice that are suspension worthy, and that's terrible. But who, like, do we know? Like, does he like give to charity? Like, I feel like there's some real bad.
Well, that doesn't necessarily offset like anything. Terrible people can give to chat. No, we don't know. I don't know Tom Wilson's moral character. I'm sure he's made lots of, kids happy in some very special situations, but the way he treats other human beings it's part of the thing, and it's totally, he's incentivized to do it. Look at the contract he got for playing the way he plays. Washington wants him thrown right on the ice all the time with their top players. Like, it's not just Tom Wilson, right? This is a bigger problem. It's Washington's problem. It's the NHL's problem. It's hockey's problem. So no, I'm not going to put that all on Tom Wilson's shoulders, but I still, it bothers me. I don't want to see anybody like think back to the highlight. I can't even remember the player who he just destroyed in a preseason game for no reason.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Like, I hate the violence in hockey, and I know we don't want to get into this debate, but just to say, like you said, like, we don't know what the coach is telling him to do. Like, he is employed. Like, I don't know. Just, because there are some people who I don't want to name names that actually are bad people, like from off ice actions that I don't know if we necessarily want to lump him in. Anyway, who knows? Maybe he is a bad person. We don't know. Okay, let's go to another team. Let's talk about another player returning from suspension. Nate Schmidt makes his debut today. The game is going as we're talking. The Golden Knights are playing the Edmonton Oilers. It's currently 2-1 for Edmonton. Let's see, how's Nate Schmidt doing? He's +1, but he has no points. So already on the ice for a goal. So that's good. He's obviously a big part of the team. Actually, like last season, he was solid even offensively, right? 36 points in 76 games, nothing to sneeze at. I kind of feel like I'd be curious to know, like, do you expect more of the same this season, or do you think Schmidt has like more or less to offer? Like, one thing that's different is like Vegas hasn't been scoring as many goals, I don't believe, as they did last season. So maybe it'll be harder for Schmidt to get to like this 40-point pace, but he seems like a pretty solid own in a lot of leagues. Like, he's decent for peripherals also.
Yeah, so when he comes back, you can expect more of the same from Nate Schmidt, exactly what you just summarized. Keep in mind also that Nate Schmidt is a pretty solid defenseman on the whole. He can skate, can move the puck, play actual defense, and keep in mind that Vegas has been feeling regression really hard in their second season, but it's also, I think, been compounded to some extent by the absence of Nate Schmidt's important and steadying presence on the back end. So here's hoping that Schmidt's return not only offers you perhaps a fantasy relevant player in your league, but it bodes well defensively for Vegas goalies like Marc-Andre Fleury, and it bodes well offensively for other guys who are struggling, one of whom I guess we're about to get to. But first, the defense.
Yeah, okay, so friend of the podcast and friend of mine, I'd like to say, maybe one day, Daniel Negreanu suggested to me that Schmidt's return will be great for Colin Miller, who has been assuming apparently Schmidt's shutdown duties and will now be able to get back to his role from last year, which was more offensive. So maybe we're about to see an uptick from Colin Miller. By the way, Daniel called that Tuck was going to break out when he came back. And he's Brian, I know you don't like that because you want me to always mention that you also called that Alex Tuck was going to have a good season. It's very good. But just to say, Daniel knows what he's talking about. And yeah, Miller was already on my radar. He had 4 assists in his last 5 games, 2 on the top power play. It looks like he bumped Shea Theodore from the top power play recently, though it looks like both power plays are getting equal time. Like if you recall, William Karlsson is now on the second unit, so they're maybe trying to rebalance things a little bit. Anyways, with that, plus Daniel's take, do you think it's time for people to jump on Colin Miller if he's available? I did in the cupful. Though I'll admit one of the reasons is because I have Theodore, and I just felt like I want to hold both of them for a little bit in case like it turns out that Miller's the one to own and Theodore isn't, then I have dibs. I don't know if I'd want to hold both of them all season long, though Theodore apparently has an assist today. But what are your thoughts on Colin Miller at this point?
My thoughts on Colin Miller are that you should probably go for him because this season, not only has it been unfair, or the hockey gods have taken away all that they gave Vegas last year, but Colin Miller has lost a lot of fortunate variance himself. No goals on 44 shots so far, so he's in the running to be this year's Duncan Keith, along with Ryan Ellis. 6% on-ice shooting percentage, which is a few points lower than it should be. Even strength IPP, below 20%. For a defenseman like Colin Miller, he should be getting in on like 35 to 40% of the goals scored while he's on the ice. Colin Miller got 41 points last year, and even like all this unfortunate variance doesn't tell a story that he deserves to have so few points this year. Like Colin Miller's game has not really changed. I think he's going to be really positively affected by both this bump in deployment to the top power play unit, though keep in mind it may not last. And I'm going to call back again to Nate Schmidt's return as well, who's going to help shoulder some of that defensive load. I've added Colin Miller in one of my leagues, and I encourage you to do the same. If a 40 to 45 point, sometimes top power play quarterback is going to offer you some value in your format too. Elon, I'm going to ask you a question, and I hope you're ready to answer. I'm not really, because I've had a hard time valuing Shea Theodore a lot. And by the way, oh no, I'm actually going to get to that later in the show. But what do you think we should be doing with Shea Theodore now that Colin Miller's on the top power play? I always have a tough time reading the Vegas blue line. Theodore just feels like a 40-point guy to me as well. I don't know that I'd drop him for Miller, but he also doesn't seem like a must hold.
Yeah, I feel like Theodore just like Miller, I feel like they have similar value right now. They're right on the edge, probably shouldn't be free agents, but aren't like must grab, like and hold forever. Like it's tough right now to know. Like Theodore's been decent enough lately. Like what I'm seeing here, like 4 points in his last 7 games. Like every once in a while he gets assists. He has an assist today, like I said, on a goal by William Karlsson. So I don't know. Like he was supposed to be like, remember when he came from Anaheim and it was like, oh, Theodore's the sure shot, like offensive defenseman on this team. He's gonna be one of the best fantasy owns on Vegas. That's what we thought going into the season, him and like Vadim Shipachyov, talking about going into last season. And like it hasn't worked out that well, but he's still been solid enough that I wouldn't just drop him at this point. I would probably like what I did, right? If you could afford to do it, like maybe grab both Miller and Shea Theodore, give it a couple weeks and then reassess. Like I don't think Miller's been bad enough. I keep saying Miller. I don't think that Theodore's been bad enough to drop, but I'm also not like super excited that I have him. I'd be send me trade offers, a couple tier 2 if you are higher on Shea Theodore than me. It won't take too much for you to take him from me.
I don't think it's a coincidence that you're confusing Miller and Theodore because of how often they switch places on the top power play and how similar their point projections are because of it. Like because they're essentially in the same spot, just trading places.
Yeah. And so we'll see. With Schmidt back, whole new situation. Patron Anthony asked us to talk about Riley Smith, who's had a disappointing season so far with only 7 points in 20 games, though he does have an assist tonight. So on this famous goal that I keep referencing, William Karlsson assisted by Riley Smith and Shea Theodore. So make that now 8 points in 21 games. But yeah, only 1 point in his last 8 going into today. And Smith, like he's been in good deployment. He's been on the top line with Marchessault and Karlsson, the top power play with Marchessault, Pacioretty, Tuck, and one of Miller or Theodore. So the deployment is there, same as last year. Perhaps, Brian, I'm going to throw a theory at you. Does Riley Smith have a pattern for his career that he's been following and we should have just seen it? Like in his first year with Boston, he put up 51 points and then he followed it up with 40. Then he got moved. Then he went to Florida where he had 50 points in his first season there, then only 36 in the next. So again, good first year, bad second year. Then he went to Vegas last year where he had 60 points in 67 games, which was great. But now he's in his second year. And so far, continuing the pattern of being a lot worse in the second year on a new team. I don't know. Like, I like his deployment. It's hard to say he's going to do nothing. Like I said, he just got an assist today. But also, I don't know. Maybe he's just a 50-point guy. Like maybe that 51-point career high that he had in Boston way back when, maybe that's the Riley Smith that we should just expect even with his deployment on Vegas.
Ryan Smith giving Craig Anderson a run for his money in having such a consistent on and off year pattern in his career.
Did you say Ryan Smith? Wasn't he someone else?
Oh, yeah. Riley Smith. Excuse me.
Ryan Smith? Ryan Smith was on Edmonton, I believe.
Of course. Captain Canada.
Sorry. You said it.
Riley Smith. Oh, yeah. His rounded shooting percentages in the 6 years before this one showing this on-off pattern, 9%, 14%, 9%, 15%, 9%, 14%, and he's currently down at 7%, which is the next sequence in that pattern if you are an elementary school math student. One number that's also down for Riley Smith, but not as a pattern, his on-ice shooting percentage, barely above 4%, and that's a big reason why Smith is not on track to have anywhere near the 45 assists he pulled last year. Not that we'd have expected him to get that many again, but unfortunate, like Vegas, like Colin Miller, Riley Smith's variance has swung too far in the opposite direction from last year's friendliness. I still like Riley Smith to pace for 20 goals and 35 assists when everything is even keel. 50 points to me, Elon, a very conservative projection, especially like maybe it works out if he does lose either or both of his top line, top power play spots for extended time. I think there's plenty of time and space for a bounce back, though. 50 feels too low for Riley Smith, given the skill he has and the deployment we can expect. If he's in free agency, you might not need to run and go get him now, but you should be ready. Like he should be on your watch list. Easy access for the moment where you do want him, because I think he will be a fantasy relevant player throughout the year. Just a matter of time for when that begins.
Okay, that's fair. And like I said, we had a patron wanting us to ask about him, Anthony. And I'll let you know that Riley Smith right now, Brian, you want to guess his percentage owned in the Cacupful through the 16 Cacupful divisions?
Is this Riley Smith still?
Yeah, Riley Smith.
Oh, I mean, I should know all my percentages possible.
Just ballpark.
We're gonna go 70.
No, 100. He still hasn't been dropped. So he still hasn't been dropped in any Cacupful division. So I would say, Anthony, if all the brilliant people in the Cacupful haven't dropped him, I don't know if you have him. You just have to talk about it. Like, I don't think you should either, right? Like, hopefully he'll do better. Like Brian says, he's in too good of a spot to not be fantasy relevant. We'll let you know if he starts. Like, he'll need to have now that he's gotten this assist. I feel like he's bought himself at least another week or two before people start considering dropping him in the cupful. One other guy I'll mention on Vegas. How about Cody Eakin killing it as the line 2 center with Eric Halla out? Eakin has 6 points in his last 6 games. He also is just recently started to get second power play time, playing on that William Karlsson
do that again. Playing on.
He's also started to get second power play unit time playing. Sorry, I'll say that again.
And we also need to do FanDuel.
I know it's next. I have it next. Eakin has also just recently started to get power play 2 time on that pretty good unit with William Karlsson, like I said, in the last 2 games. Should people be eyeing Cody Eakin as a stream while holding down this deployment, centering Pacioretty and Alex Tuch on the second line?
Good stream is what Cody Eakin is. He's not really a long-term ad. You don't want to drop anyone to make too big of an investment in him. But Cody Eakin is in a good place in the lineup. He had 4 goals on 8 shots, and that got all of our attention. So yeah, decent spot in the lineup and streak for a stream. Remember the days, Elon, when Cody Eakin was a stream because he was the third piece on the Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn line? It's like a similar situation here, though obviously not quite as good.
Yeah, well, of course, there were like a bunch of people jumping in and out of that spot. Like Patrick Eaves was also one of them that would get in there every once in a while. And yeah, Cody Eakin doing well now, and I'd grab him if you can. If it's a deep enough league, grab him and keep him until he slows down. Sometimes though in fantasy, it's tricky. You can't just grab a guy because you have to drop someone, you don't know who to drop. But if you want to have Cody Eakin on your team right now, one way to do it is to play daily fantasy with our friends and sponsor for this week's episode, which are our friends over at FanDuel, because FanDuel, it's a great way to play fantasy hockey, but just for a single day. It's fantasy hockey for everyday fans. There's new contests starting every day. You play whenever you want. There's something for everyone. Lots of contests to choose from starting at just $1. You pick a contest. You choose your team just for that day. You've got a budget, so you got to take, you choose which stars you want to take. They're going to take the majority of your budget. Then you're going to have to find some value guys. It's a lot of fun. You watch your score in real time, see how you did. Every week, we have our Keeping Karlsson FanDuel League, which is a lot of fun for our listeners, and myself and Brian always play. Last week, I don't know, maybe we don't need to talk about it too long. I didn't do too well, but neither did Brian. Actually, we both stunk, but Fabini
did better than you.
Better than you. Okay.
I think I was top 10. Why did you? Come on.
You weren't top 10. I'm looking at it right now. You weren't top 10, Brian.
I was 11th.
Okay, good. Here you go. Let's give him this. Brian, 11th.
Where did you finish, Elon?
I don't know. I'm not keeping track. I didn't do well.
Last?
Okay, 16th out of 26. It's not terrible. I had a good roster. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. I had Darcy Kemper on me. Like, Darcy Kemper's been so weird, right? I thought he was such a good value goalie. He's had some games where he's been like the best goalie of the night, like more often than not. But in this game, he lost 6-1 to Detroit, gave me negative points, which didn't help compared to the winner, which was Fabini, who had Frederick Anderson, who got that 5-1 win over LA, 25.6 points for Anderson. So quite a goalie swing right there. Fabini also had Connor McDavid, which is always great. You got to spend a lot to get him, but when you get him, it's good. And that was that great 6-2 win over Montreal. He also had Draisaitl, so he stacked him. Smart guy. Congratulations to Fabini. Brian, why don't you tell our listeners right now how they can play in our next FanDuel contest? We got to do something, right? There's only like one game on Tuesday. Smart
guy or gal, just for we don't know. Also, I just want to give my excuse. I spent like a large part of my salary on Kucherov, Hedman, and Braden Point, and Carter Hutton decided to be unstoppable. Very frustrating. Otherwise, I definitely would have been first place. Okay. FanDuel listener contest. This week, it's not on a Tuesday because there's only one game. It's going to be on a Wednesday. Wow, the novelty. If you want to come and take Elon and I on and be a part of the reason why we try and shame each other based on the place where we finish in the FanDuel listener contest, all you need to do is head on over to FanDuel.com/Karlsson, spelled like Eric's last name, FanDuel.com/Karlsson. If you're a new user, you're going to get a $5 deposit bonus when you make your first deposit on FanDuel using our promo code. Again, just visit FanDuel.com/Karlsson, sign up with our promo code. And also, please join us Wednesday for our listener contest. It's always a lot of fun. It'll open sometime Wednesday morning around 10 a.m. Eastern. So make sure to go and get your spot because spots are limited.
Yeah. We have a code, Brian? What's our code?
FanDuel, it's Karlsson.
Oh, okay, it's Karlsson. You kept on referencing this code.
Well, I think if you go to the link, fanduel.com/Karlsson, it should all happen automatically.
Yeah,
If you please use the link. That's the best way to do it.
The magic of the internet. That's the only way to get into our contest, our listener league. Okay, let's continue with the show. We still got a lot of players I want to talk about. One more injury I want to get to. Sami Vatanen is on the IR with a lower body injury for the New Jersey Devils. I know, Brian, you were bummed about this. You have Vatanen in your Cupful Tier 1 division, and you were like, no, Vatanen's injured. I already had Fowler injured. Now, terrible. You still won this week, though, right?
Yes, and I had one of the best scores, I think, in all the Cupful. I'm excited for you to do your roundup where you find the highest score. I feel like I'm top 10 this week for sure.
By the way, I didn't post my message this week about who had the highest Cupful score because the guy who had it isn't in the Cupful Zone Facebook group, and I sent you an email. So check your email. Anyway,
he responded.
He did. What did he say?
He's in. He joined the group. He said thank you. I think was it Ben? Was it a Ben?
Well, now you're pretty much. I don't remember. It sounds like it could have been a Ben. Yeah, it was like. It was a Ben. Okay, good job,
anyway,
Ben.
He's gonna receive his plaudits in the Cupful Zone now.
Okay. What are we talking about? Sami Vatanen's injured, right? So with him out, Damon Severson has been getting a bump in ice time. I'm already ready for Brian to do his talk about Severson and say like Severson, like every single second word changed around. Pretty sure it's Severson. Okay. He's been getting a bump in ice time. He's seen over 20 minutes in his last 4 games after being below 20 minutes for a while. I feel like that's my threshold, Brian. That's one of the reasons why I think I'm done with Kevin Shattenkirk. I can't take owning a defenseman who has less than 20 minutes every single game. But Severson's been over that threshold, and he had an assist yesterday versus Detroit, bringing him to 5 points in his last 4 games. Is Severson on your radar at all as a depth defenseman ad? Like, I recall we were excited about him like a long time ago. I feel like in maybe the first or second season of keeping Karlsson, he like kind of burst on the scene and had a really strong start to his career and then sort of faded away and became a non-entity. But like hard to ignore his current 59-point pace on the season. So I feel like while Vatanen's out, Severson's someone people should be looking at.
Sure, I'm going to get to Severson. First, Sami Vatanen, what a bummer. Even though he didn't have a ton of points or power play time, Sami Vatanen was great to have in leagues that reward peripherals. He had about 2 shots, 2 hits, 2 blocks each game. So hopefully he's not out too long. Also, as an aside, we've talked about Vatanen. We've talked about Shea Theodore. And we talked about also Lindholm and Manson and Fowler. Like these Anaheim Ducks defensemen and Anaheim Ducks defensemen alumna, they're everywhere. They're all over the place trying to, like, what a great solid decor they had. It's unfortunate now that they are giving up, like, just bleeding shots against. Your question was about Damon Severson. Sure, as a depth ad, absolutely. He saw 26 minutes in Sami Vatanen's first game out of the lineup, and that could very well become a theme if Vatanen's out for a little while. Severson quietly had 2 goals and 5 assists for 7 points in his first 8 games, now has 1 goal and 4 assists for 5 points in his last 5 games. That's a lot being driven by a 73% IPP, which is high for a forward, let alone a defenseman. It's high for some forwards, let alone a defenseman like Severson, who has little offensive pedigree. His IPP should generally be around 35%. To his credit, though, 5 of his 9 even strength assists have been primaries, but even still, I'm not expecting this production to last. But if you want to give him a go, you can, except it's not like Vatanen's out, so there's a whole lot of production to step into. Vatanen was not producing a whole lot himself offensively, so I'm not sure that there's any offense that suddenly needs to be redistributed, although Severson, if he wants, can try and make offensive use of his extra minutes.
Yeah, for sure. So it's like, if you're in a league where defensemen are really hard to come by, he's a guy to add to your watch list at this point. But yeah, don't expect a huge breakout. Another Devil that actually has been breaking out lately, coming out of nowhere, is someone named Blake Coleman, who has 7 points in his last 6 games. I think that's before today. I think Devils played today. But yeah, no power play time, but he's just getting a ton of points. Patron Adam asked us to bring him up this week. But I was, of course, going to anyway, just so I could ask you, Brian, who the heck is Blake Coleman? Is there any chance he could keep this up, or is this for sure fleeting production?
Blake Coleman is a small, soon-to-be 27-year-old forward who's never had much of a look at the NHL level since being drafted 75th overall in the 3rd round by the Devils all the way back in 2011. In fact, Blake Coleman, despite almost being 27, he finished college. So this is just his 3rd professional season. We still haven't seen a lot of what he has to offer, even though he's essentially exiting his prime years. He's been pretty all right at the AHL level. Coleman had 19 goals and 20 assists for 39 points in 52 games in his only full AHL season for Albany. And I'm actually not going to write off what he's been doing at the NHL level this year. Elon, you brought him up because he's looked impressive in rote scoring stats. he's actually looking pretty good in his rate stats too and underlying numbers. Coleman is second in 5-on-5 points per 60 on the Devils behind only Travis Zajac. He's second in 5-on-5 shots per 60 behind only Taylor Hall. He's third in shot attempts per 60 behind Taylor Hall and Miles Wood. Coleman's shooting percentage may be a little high. Same with his on-ice shooting percentage. But this is the sort of profile that we're curious to see what happens when it gets a bump in deployment. So with a nice improvement in deployment for Coleman, and if he can keep up his shot and shot attempt rates, he's someone to be keeping an eye on in the vein, like the same way we've been keeping an eye on Miles Wood for the last year and a bit. So don't totally disregard, even though Blake Coleman is kind of a boring name, should be on your watch list.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. He's not on my watch list. I got to see power play time to get really excited about someone.
Just in a deep league.
Yeah, in a super deep league. Keep your eye on him. Yeah.
In a kind of quasi-deep league.
How much you want to bet that he's not going to get like any points next week?
No, I was just being, you're pretty much right.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Just saying, like, my tendency when you bring up these guys is just be like, guys, 27 years old. Like, he's never done anything. Forget it. But like, he actually looks pretty good under the hood. So I'd be really interested to see what he could do with the sustained opportunity, which it sounds like you're not sure this is going to be that.
Well, okay. Ball's in your court, Blake Coleman. I'm not expecting to say your name ever again on Keeping Karlsson, but, make me do it. I'll be happy to. Brian, the chat room here is giving us a ton of updates. A bunch of players that we've already talked about are having games. Like over on Anaheim, Montour now has 3 points. It's 3-1 for Anaheim over the Avalanche. So we already said we want you to add him. All the more so now. Now I feel you have to add him quickly because now he's going to start getting on everyone's radars. Andre Kasha finally got that goal that we were waiting for. So he's got a goal. Plus that goal by Andre Kasha, assisted by Ryan Getzlaf. So I don't have the line combos. I guess I could check the real-time Dauber line combos here. But I was saying, what if Kasha gets on a Getzlaf line? That would be pretty sweet. And right now I'm seeing Kasha with Getzlaf and Raquel. I called it. Guys, trust me. Like, I prepped this document before the game started. So don't think that I'm being a big phony here. But it's happening. So forget about Pontus Aberg. Grab yourself some Andre Kasha stat. Then this Golden Knights versus Edmonton game. Who did we talk about? We talked about all these guys. So Shea Theodore has an assist. Colin Miller has a power play assist. Riley Smith now has 2 assists. Like all these guys we talked about, we've been lighting a fire under them. Pacioretty scored a goal. Cody Eakin with a shorthanded goal. So all these guys also you might have to grab them quickly. And also, by the way, Brian, Cam Talbot, not good. 4 goals against now on 11 shots. I feel like he's probably going to get pulled soon. I actually added Mikko Koskinen in the cupful, thinking that like he might be the starter now in Edmonton. Like Talbot got the start today because Koskinen played yesterday, so it was a back-to-back. And Talbot stinks this season. He's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. It's not like Edmonton is tied to him for any reason. I don't know. After today, I feel like I'd be, again, caveat with all the goalie recommendations, but I feel like I'm kind of thinking like I'm done with Cam Talbot. I might suggest that people could drop him in leagues where, like maybe there's some goalies available. And I feel like Mikko Koskinen is quickly becoming a must add for me. Like he's having a great season so far. And this Edmonton team should be good if they could get some goaltending. Could be a little good.
So here's the thing. I agree with you. I also feel as though there's a strong possibility that by the time most people are listening to this, the Edmonton Oilers will have a new coach. Like this has to be the end for Todd McClellan, right? And if it is, then things will change in how the team plays, and maybe clean slates will be offered. If not, though, let's remember that Cam Talbot, Elon, you actually reminded me earlier this week when I'm like, I'm not sure about Mikko Koskinen. Talbot seems to be the Oilers' guy. He's not signed beyond this season. Neither is Koskinen. So why not just try and go with the guy who seems better, give him as many games as he can handle? Koskinen has a no move clause for whatever reason and is getting paid $2.5 million. So you might as well throw him in and see what he can offer you if Cam Talbot isn't doing the job, which he's not. He's not doing the job. So Mikko Koskinen, if you are desperate for a goalie, will make a fantastic ad that probably a lot of people don't realize is a legit threat to take over starts because of how ridiculed the Oilers were for making that signing in the offseason. I'm not saying his play so far necessarily justifies it. There are a whole lot of other places where they probably could have focused their attention, but it helps.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, I don't want to brag, but I just will say that on the same day that Louis Domingue got added for 50 fab dollars in my couple division, I got Mikko Koskinen for $0. So we'll see who ends up happier come cupful playoff time. So Brian, that's it finally for the injuries and outjuries. I've got a lot of players on hot streaks and cold streaks that I wanted to bring up, so maybe we could turn this into a bit of a lightning round. But I do have like a ton of players. Actually, I feel like it would be silly to call this a lightning round, but I definitely want to start with a request from patron Scott. And of course, Average TOI favorite, and Average TOI is one of my favorite Twitter accounts. And one of their favorite players is New York Ranger rookie Philip Hedl, which is spelled Cheadle, but it's apparently pronounced Hedl. He's also known as Philly Heat, and he scored yesterday for against the Panthers in his third straight games. That's 3 straight games with a goal for Philip Hedl. What a guy. Before that, he only had 3 assists in 17 games, but I have a couple reasons to think that this is like something new and we could just throw out the previous games. First of all, he's had 11 shots over these most recent 3 games. He only had 4 shots over his previously last 7 games. So I feel like he must be in some sort of a new situation where he's getting the opportunity to take all these shots. And what it is, I can tell you what it is. Top line deployment. He had been playing with Mika Zibanejad and Zuccarello a couple games ago. Zuccarello, though, is injured again with his groin injury. He came back, but now he's injured again. And so they shifted up the lines. And in the last game, Zibanejad was playing with Nemesnikov and Fast, but Hedl was playing with Kevin Hayes and Chris Kreider, so still a really good spot. And Hedl's been on the top power play with Kreider, Zibanejad, Nemesnikov, and Pionk as of the last game. So Brian, is Philly Heat becoming the next hot free agent that everyone needs to rush and add before it's too late? Or do you expect this run to be fleeting and he'll be another one of these guys that we don't mention again for the rest of the season?
Hedl was someone we sort of tabbed out of training camp. It's like he'd had a good training camp, had a good, like, seemed to have impressed team brass. And it took a while for him to finally get his turn in good deployment. But now Hedl has broken the seal and seemingly can't stop. Hedl's deployment has been all over the place so far in terms of line mates to get to where he has been now. He played for a little, like a short stretch with Zuccarello and Hayes, then a short stretch on the 4th line with Vinny Lettieri and Cody McLeod. Otherwise, he's been mixed and matched all over the lineup. But it's nice to hope that maybe with some production, he'll get some consistency in his line mates. And one thing working in his favor in where he places in the depth chart in New York is that the Rangers are using him at right wing. That's where he's been playing with Zibanejad, and where like the Rangers need that sort of help at right wing, because their other options on the right wing are Jesper Fast, now Ryan Strome, Vinny Lettieri, and that's it. So Hedl moving from center to the wing is great flexibility for him to have so that he can climb up the depth chart rather than be stuck as potentially the 3rd center behind Zibanejad and Kevin Hayes. And assuming they keep using him on the right side, I'd go ahead and look for Hedl in a deep league with those shot counts and deployment. Great signs that perhaps we're about to see some flashes. Maybe he can be the 2nd runner-up in Calder voting this year.
Maybe it's between him and maybe Brady Tkachuk. Oh no, Brady Tkachuk is 1st runner-up, you're saying?
Yeah.
I see. Okay, yeah, I could see it happening. Hedl's looking good. I love what the Average TOI guys and gals are doing on their account. Every single time he scores a goal, you have to microwave a beer and then drink it. That's what's called the Philly Heat, apparently. Seems kind of gross, but that's what you got to do when you get a goal from Philly Heat. So if you want to add him, that's the only condition if you want to have him on your fantasy team. And then you have to tweet at us. And is it AVG Time on Ice? I forget.
I think that's it.
AVG Time on Ice. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Tweet at both of us with your video of your drinking your hot beer every single time Philly Heat scores a goal. He's not the only Ranger, by the way, doing well, and a player that's also someone that might be available as a free agent in your league. Like over the last 7 games played, we've got Chris Kreider, 9 points in his last 7 games. So an unbelievable run for Chris Kreider. Kevin Hayes has 8 points in his last 7. Neil Pionk, who we've already talked about a bunch on the show. We hope you added him. We told you to. If you don't have him on your team and you had the opportunity, that's on you. That's not on us. Okay? He's got 7 points now in his last 7 games. And Brian, like I said before, I'm over Kevin Shattenkirk. You can let me know if you disagree, but I feel like if someone like Montour or like a Mike Green, I don't know, like if there's like a decent enough first power play defenseman available, like enough with Shattenkirk. Forget about it. He's not on the top power play. He's playing less than 10 minutes a game. I know he gets an assist every once in a while, but okay. Zibanejad, 7 points in his last 7. Jimmy Vesey has 6 points in his last 7. Nemesnikov, who's getting great deployment. I wonder if it's just to show him off so that they could get value for him in a trade, but he's got 5 points in his last 7. So a bunch of Rangers here that are doing well. Next week, like you said, has that really weird schedule with Thursday off and Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, super full. The Rangers play on all 3 of those super full days, but also on Monday. So that might be a good day to stream in one of these Rangers, maybe grab Philly Heat for Monday. Any of these players you want to talk about? I'll just kind of throw it to you. Up to you, right? Like any of these numbers especially sustainable or fleeting to you?
Well, I think they just illustrate that New York is scoring a lot. In their last 10 games, the Rangers have scored 3, 4, or 5 goals in 8 of them. That's amazing. So they are just racking up goals. And actually, somehow, remember, Elon, we were saying, where I was like cheekily saying, I guess this has to be a rebuild year. Now they have won 7 of their last 9. And I say that slowly because I'm calculating this on the fly. But I'm pretty sure that's what's happened. And good for them. It's nice that their players are all clicking, but I'm not sure that any of this, like Zibanejad, I'm going to give him sustainability. Kevin Hayes, Jimmy Vesey probably producing a little more. Like these guys are all the guys. Nothing's changing in my projections for any of them. Your point on Shattenkirk is well taken. Like he's not playing on the top power play. Doesn't seem like they're willing to really give him much of a look there. He's playing with Tony DeAngelo on the second unit, if he is playing on the second unit. So, yeah, you can leave him until, like, I don't know what's going to happen to Pionk for Shattenkirk to get up to the top unit again. It seems like the spot just might be gone, which is crazy.
It's not crazy. Pionk is great. He's doing so well.
Yeah, no, Pionk is earning it and holding it. It's baffling that I still think, as you know, that Kevin Shattenkirk has some really great power play quarterback skills that are just kind of going to waste.
Maybe time for a trade, though. Who's going to take that contract?
And like he was lining up to be a Ranger for so long, and they were just waiting to get him to. Like this was such like a predestined thing to happen for him to end up in New York, both for him and the team, and it's just gone so poorly. I'm sure lessons have been learned.
Yeah, Rangers also made a trade, Ryan Spooner to the Oilers for Ryan Strome. I feel like there's nothing relevant here, right? Also, I just remembered back when we were talking about LA, they made a trade, Tanner Pearson for Hagelin. I feel like that's not very relevant either. Maybe like relevant for Pittsburgh, getting Pearson, who I saw was playing with Malkin. But anyways, Spooner for like anything about these trades, I feel like there's nothing much to say.
No, I don't think there's a whole lot to say either. Like, I don't know, Ryan Strome. No, there's nothing to say. I don't know. Neither guy seems to be terribly well. Like they're both on now at least their third team. Ryan Spooner seems to just not be liked wherever he goes by the coaching staff. So I'm not hopeful for him heading into Edmonton. And Ryan Strome, I mean, maybe like he could play on the right side and the Oilers could use that. So we'll see if he gets good deployment. We'll wait a couple games to see how he shakes out in their lineup.
Yeah, you mean Spooner, not Strome. Strome, we saw, did not work out with the Edmonton Oilers, that's for sure. Spooner's been playing today with RNH, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and Alex Chiasson. Apparently, I'm looking at the real-time line combos. Not on the top power play. By the way, Alex Chiasson, that line and top power play, it looks like. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Connor McDavid, Draisaitl, Chiasson, and Oscar Klefbom on the top power play for Edmonton today. But they're losing. They'll probably shake it up again, just like they always do, because they suck. Okay, sorry. Don't play Talbot. Maybe that'll help. Let's go to Florida. Mike Hoffman, first of all, has been bumped to the top line. I don't know if we've mentioned that. So Nick Bjugstad gone. It's been Hoffman, Barkov, and Dadonov on like such an amazing line. Like I love this line. And Hoffman's been insane. He's up to 18 points in 17 games. He's on like a point streak that's been going on forever. Feels like since the start of the year. Like the Sens and the Sharks both gave away Mike Hoffman for nothing. For like no reason, like because of off ice issues that like what didn't even have to do with him, or maybe like tangentially had to do with him, right? Like so dumb. Like I don't even know. Like I don't want to hear this. Like oh, it would have been tough in the locker room. Like seems to be going pretty well for Florida with Mike Hoffman. So I'm just gonna throw that out there. I don't want to hear any more of this. I get so annoyed when I hear the media talking about a player needs to be moved because he's tough in the locker room. Like these are professional hockey players. You go on the ice, you pass to the guy, you shoot the. I mean, this is their job. They've been training their whole life for this. So I'm like, oh, this guy. I don't know. So stupid.
Elon, when you are playing, like when you're at work and you're on a team with someone that you don't love, is your productivity or morale affected at all? Like, I believe this is a real thing to the extent that like the thing with the media is they generally will kneecap a guy when he's on his way out or when he's already gone. And then a lot of it is like made up garbage. But I think it's a real thing that if you're like forced to work with people you don't like, or that people that are rude or bad people, it doesn't feel good, and your productivity and capabilities might be affected.
I guess so. I don't know. I'd be a professional at work. I don't think I would have my productivity affected. Also, like if you're gonna move Mike Hoffman, Can we get someone back? Who did they get? Tierney? I don't know. Like, or maybe he was from Bodker. Come on. Mike Hoffman, again, 18 points in 17 games, top line, like superstar in the league. Fantastic. Okay, anyway, whatever. People are very happy if they drafted him. Vetrano's been on the second line with Huberdeau and Trocheck. He hasn't done much, not much to talk about. Bjugstad dropped down to line 3. He has 1 point in his last 4. He had a pretty decent start to the season, but I feel like he's probably a snoozer in a lot of leagues now that he's out of the top 6. Do you concur with that? And maybe before you answer that, we could also talk about Aaron Ekblad, who had a power play goal in each of his last 3 games from the second power play unit. So he hasn't been on the top power play, but he's definitely taking advantage of the power play time he does get. Ekblad also had 5 shots yesterday. Is there anything here? Like, he has kind of been a guy we've not forgotten about, but we've sort of said, like, we're not going to rank him as someone who's going to be a high offensive contributor while Keith Yandel is on the Panthers. And now Ekblad, these 3 games in a row, just like Hedl, right? Scoring a goal in each of the last 3 games. Do you think he could keep this up? Do you think he's the type of guy that people should be adding if he's been dropped in their leagues?
Like Aaron Ekblad has 3 goals on his last 10 shots. Good for him. He had 2 assists in 14 games before that. So I'm still pretty uninterested in him. But like, you can try him in a deeper league. It's nice that he's getting some shots still. That's been at least the one thing he can offer, because he doesn't offer really anything else in the way of peripherals or generally points. Bjugstad, you can probably let go of. Like, when he's on the top line, he's barely worth holding on to if he's not producing. If Bjugstad's on the third line and not producing, definite snoozer. And Mike Hoffman, yeah, what a season he's having. I mean, I remember we were a little anxious to even project him for 60 points at the start of the year because we didn't exactly know how he'd be deployed. But I think now Hoffman has a really good chance at keeping what he's doing up well enough to join the 70-point club this season.
Yeah, join the 70-point club and maybe be higher. Like Dadonov, like, you know, like, these are 2 good line mates, like Barkov and Dadonov. I can't stress enough how much I love both of those players. And Hoffman's a good player too. Patty's giving some, okay, so fine. Obviously, I'm exaggerating a little bit about this whole, like, this, he was like, obviously things happened and that's important. I'm just saying, like, you don't give away an awesome player for nothing, in my opinion, but whatever. Like, I don't know, with Brian's work analogy, you don't really trade coworkers, but I feel like I would trade my bad coworker, try to get some, like, get a good photocopier or something in return.
The lesson is to not give up all your leverage. And the Sens traded both players involved in the locker room fracas and got very little back. And you can see that Hoffman fits in well when everything's going well. So you should not, like, as a GM in hockey, it's one thing to be a player in care, but as a GM, you need to try and make sure that you're getting the best value for your assets, which neither the Senators the Senators definitely didn't, because the Sharks turned Hoffman around for a better return than the Senators got when they traded him on to Florida. But neither team got anywhere near what they probably could have or should have.
Yeah, like, I don't get why the Sharks didn't at least hold on to him. Anyway, do people like when we go veer off from fantasy? I was saying that stuff about Tom Wilson earlier, and now this Hoffman trade. Should we stick to fantasy? Let us know. Tweet at us at Keeping Karlsson if you want us to go do a side, like, hockey non-fantasy podcast. And maybe
hashtag stick to fantasy. No, but come on. I like to talk.
Okay, we're talking. Here we are. But we still have a lot of players I want to talk about fantasy-wise. Okay. So let's keep going. Adam is saying in the chat room, by the way, Ekblad is in the Ovechkin spot on the second power play and has been good there. So that's cool. It's interesting. Something to watch. Maybe go buy tickets to a Panthers game and you can watch it live with SeatGeek. What am I doing? Okay, another player on a hot streak, Mike Green. 9 points in 11 games on the season. He's currently on a 3-game point streak. Don't really have much to say about him, but just, like, he's good. If he's a free agent in your league, I would add him. I would drop, like, Shattenkirk for him if you can, Brian. We have that opportunity, and I want to do it. I'm done with Shattenkirk. I want Mike Green.
Okay, you can take Mike Green. Mike Green, good for Mike Green. It's nice to see him do stuff in the season that I give up on him doing stuff. He's like Pominville. I've kept the faith for so long, and this year I didn't. 5 of Green's 8 assists, though, are secondary. His IBP is a little high, but even a 40-point pace is essentially a win for Mike Green. So things are actually still looking good, even if you do allow for some aggression in his current numbers. Mike Green, fantasy relevant.
Okay, and Brian, next I want to go to the Islanders. They've been doing some wonky stuff with their power play. Barzal was off the top power play. When I was prepping this show, the Islanders hadn't played their game today yet. They played today against Minnesota. No, they played against Dallas. They lost 6-2, so that usually means that the lines are going to shake up again. But I'm seeing some really weird stuff now. Johnny Boychuk was the defenseman on the top power play with Barzal, Beauvillier, Clutterbuck, and Brock Nelson. How can this be? Oh, they must have just been not much time. I don't know. It looks like Bailey, Eberle. What it's been lately, and I think what it still was yesterday or today was Bailey, Eberle, Anders Lee, and then Leddy and Pulak, and Barzal bumped for some reason, which is pretty wild. It must just be that the second unit got more time just because of how it sometimes works out. Yeah, so not great for Barzal. The one good thing for Barzal is that he's finally taking shots. He wasn't doing that in a while. So I don't know. It's hard to say at this point what like Barzal owners should be feeling. Like there's reasons to be happy. There's reasons to be not so happy. Remember, he wasn't taking any shots for a while. It was ridiculous. He still has like 18 points in 19 games. So he's having a good season. If he's finally taking shots, I'm sure this power play thing will work itself out, I guess. And like speaking of the Islanders power play, I think Pulak's now on the top power play if they're playing two defensemen, but he's been ice cold. Like he's pointless in 7 before today. I see he got an assist today. I don't know if that saves him in people's leagues. Like only now 6 points on the season. Is Ryan Pulak a snoozer? Like we were saying at some point, he was going to be the guy. This was going to be his year. I'm kind of ready to just tell people if you want to drop him, you can. He's like in Shattenkirk territory for me, I think.
So I own Pulak in Cupful, and I've been toying with the idea of dropping him, but he finally picked up a point in his last game, which I think was today. It feels like 2 days sometimes when I prepare. Anyway, Pulak is shooting and hitting less than he was last season at 5-on-5. Feels like that might be by design, though, at least the shot-taking part of it, where Pulak might be getting asked by his coach to focus a little bit more on the defensive side of things before he ventures to the offensive side of things. Elon, it's funny because you told me to add, like you suggested I add Nick Leddy in the Cupful, and I ended up doing it, but Pulak outscored Leddy in the last game. The thing with Leddy is that it seems like he has the longest leash on the top power play. Barry Trotz, in an article by Arthur Staples over at The Athletic, was talking about how, finally Nick Leddy has the defensive game that he's been trying to get him to work on and attain. And now that Leddy's there defensively, now he can start working on his offense. So that's nice that we were all waiting for that to happen. So we'll see who pans out offensively first between Leddy and Pulak. Seems like it's going to be Leddy because of the deployment he's getting. And we're just going to have to keep waiting on Ryan Pulak to get his opportunity.
Yeah, like he is getting, like you said, he got a point today. Who knows? And Brian, yeah, like Leddy had 2 assists in his previous game before today, but then nothing again today. So who knows? Like I feel like Leddy's just the type of guy that you don't need to hold in any fantasy league, but any game that he plays, there's always the threat that he's going to get points because the Islanders score some goals and he's on the ice for a lot of the game, including on the power play. But yeah, this team is weird right now. It's really hard to report on them. So let's just move on. I want to talk about Elias Pettersson on the Vancouver Canucks, who scored a power play goal yesterday after being pointless in 4 games. Before those 4 games, he's getting points in almost every game, often multiple points. We were so high on him and still am, of course, but it's clear also Vancouver's like really missing Brock Besser and Alex Edler, like 2 staples of their top power play. Like both apparently could be back soonish. Patron Christopher asked for a statistical analysis of Pettersson's cold streak. So Brian, like, was it just bad? Like what happened in those 4 games? Was Pettersson like being unlucky, or was that just like he wasn't good? He didn't play well. Vancouver's not that good. That's going to happen.
Bit of both. Let's look at it this way. In Elias Pettersson's first 10 games, he'd registered at least 2 shots on goal in 8 of those 10 games. Since the dawn of this cold snap, though, Pettersson has registered fewer than 2 shots per game in 3 of 5 contests. And you have to wonder if that's a feature of, well, the rest of the league taking notice of what Pettersson's been able to do and keying in on him, wanting very badly to not be the next ones to show up on the Elias Pettersson highlight reel. It also obviously hurts, as you mentioned, Elon, there are few others in Vancouver to be keying in on, or to be keyed in on by opponents in, oh my gosh, I'm going to do that again. It also obviously hurts, as you mentioned, Elon, that there are few other Canucks for opponents to be keying in on at the moment, which puts a lot of attention on Pettersson from opposing teams. Pettersson also needed 14 shots. He went 14 shots without scoring a goal, and he still has a shooting percentage hovering at 26%. So this is regression that we expected. We're not expecting 10 goals on every 28 shots Pettersson takes, no matter how good he is, which is where we were at before this cold snap began.
Okay, Brian, by the way, hot breaking news here in the chat room. Marcus is saying that Pettersson prefers to be called Peterson.
Oh, God.
So we'll keep that under advisement, and we'll look into that for next week and for the rest of our lives, because we're going to be talking about Elias Peterson for a very long time. He's awesome. Now we have 2 Petersons mentioned in the same show, because we had Cal Peterson before.
And Calvin, we don't, there's so, It's hard to keep up, but
We're
we do
doing our
what we
best.
can. Bo Horvat, by the way, can I just mention
Please.
how he has continued putting up production, even though he has not had like the greatest like we always wondered what happens if Bo Horvat gets taken away from Brock Besser and what can he possibly do in that scenario. But lately he's been playing with like a crazy mix of players. Definitely Antoine Roussel over the last 4 games and Tim Schaller. But even in that situation, he's still been all right. He has 3 points in his last 5 games, which like isn't great. He also has 15 shots in his last 5 games. Like these are not world beating numbers, but the fact that he's still putting up any sort of fringe relevant production without playing with Besser and without having played a minute with Pedersen at even strength so far is we should give him credit because we put him down, or we don't put him down, but we caution a lot that he's not necessarily doing this by himself.
Good job, Bo Horvat. And Brian, it's nice to hear you saying something nice about him. I feel like you're always a big Bo Horvat detractor.
I like to even things out.
You're switching over to the other side. He's a good player. Seems like it. Anyways, okay, Brian, what's going on with Alex DeBrincat? He has 1 point in his last 5 games. He started the season with 15 points in 15 games, 1 point in his last 5. That was before today. Chicago won 3-1 against Minnesota today, and another pointless game for Alex DeBrincat. Oh my goodness. What's happening? He's also been playing on the third line with David Kampf and Dominic Cahoon, so not great line mates. Should DeBrincat owners be worried, or is now the time for anyone who doesn't own him to rush and make a buy low offer? Like, we had huge hype for him going into the season. He started the year on fire, and now it's like totally disappeared.
I'd buy low on DeBrincat. He is languishing on the third line, especially seems that way since the new coach took the helm in Chicago. And DeBrincat seems to be tied to Dominic Cahoon. Like they're playing as a pair. And with Kemp, like this, it looks like a third line checking unit, which is a weird way to be deploying Alex DeBrincat. He's also off the top power play, with Chicago had turned into a 3 forward, 2 defenseman setup in their last outing, which is insane because they don't even have 1 power play quarterback, let alone 2 on their blue line. Schmaltz was the third forward with Taves and Kane. So none of that really makes any sense. Hopefully it doesn't last. The good news about DeBrincat while we wait is that he still has 3 or more shots more often than not. And he scored just once on his last 28 shots in his last 10 games. So he's still putting in the work, getting chances. Something's going to give at some point. Things just aren't going his way, as opposed to earlier this year when everything seemed to be going his way. So I preach patience with Alex DeBrincat.
Yeah, and hopefully he'll get back on a good line soon. Maybe he's being taught some sort of lesson. You got to hope if you're a DeBrincat owner. Over on Minnesota, we got a tweet today. Per Tornqvist, usually on Twitter, we get tweets asking us if they should do something. Here was just Per Tornqvist just said, I dropped Jason Zucker. They're like happy emojis. So kind of shocking, right? He's a guy we were really excited about, but you take a look at his numbers, 5 points in his last 9 games before today, and again, pointless today. So that makes it 5 points in his last 10. 14 points in 21 games on the season, which is like a 55-point pace. Not bad, I guess, but we had super high hopes. He had 64 points last year. Are you seeing any red flags on Jason Zucker, or maybe is that he's someone that we need to consider dropping? Because, Brian, we have him in our joint league, and there's some pretty good free agents out there.
And I own him in another league, too. We were really excited to see Zucker's power play time on ice go up last year and hoped that trend would continue, that we'd see it continuing to rise maybe, that he'd make good use of that newfound man advantage opportunity. But Zucker's deployment has held steady with last year, still better, but not as good as we hoped. And with that deployment on the power play, his performance has actually sagged. He's on pace for 12 power play points, which falls short of last year's 16 power play points. Zucker's actually attempting even more shots than he was last year on the power play, but actual shots on goal have not risen accordingly, which means that maybe something just isn't getting to the net. Like he's still doing the right things. His shooting percentage, His shooting percentage is also half of last year's 20% power play conversion rate that he had. So that all hurts. And it's not a dissimilar story at 5-on-5 for Zucker either. I think that 65 points is still in reach, but it's not looking as certain as I thought it could be heading into the season. You can do like a cautious buy low on Zucker if you want, like deal a 55-point player for him. I still think that's his floor, but he has more upside than a lot of 55-point players around the league still.
Okay, yeah, Zucker, and I said Zucker before, I apologize. We're going to get this right eventually on every single player. But Zucker has been playing with Eric Stahl and Mikhail Granlund and been getting good power play time. So he's like in a good spot. And so, yeah, you got to expect that he's not going to go with only 5 points in every 10 games. That's for sure. Brian, another guy in Minnesota I'm very excited about because I just added him in a super deep league. Somehow I was able to add red hot Mikko Koivu a couple days ago. He's got 11 points in his last 7 games, 17 and 19 on the season. And that's before today. Gotta imagine he got more. Yeah, another assist today. Love him. Loving Mikko Koivu. You know what? People think of him as like super old. He's 35, just like me. So, we were meant to be together. I'm glad to have him on my team. He gets tons of minutes, top line, power play deployment, all the good stuff. Do you think Koivu can keep this up? Like maybe not like over a point per game, but I feel like at this point, isn't he like a must add if he's still available everywhere, especially if like points are valued more than like peripherals?
Yes, if points are valued more than peripherals, because you can't count on peripherals from Koivu. His on-ice shooting percentage is above 11%. It's high. He has a very high power play IPP. It's near 90%. And really under the hood, outside of variance, nothing's really changed since last year for Koivu when he had 45 points. But even last year, with that 45 points, there were runs like this and then long stretches of nothing. He was essentially a streamer, someone you'd try and hit the jackpot on in a given week. So I wouldn't be investing big in Mikko Koivu, but I mean, he's still a good player with great line mates. So it makes a lot of sense to see if you can add him while he's hot.
Yeah, and also, by the way, remember a guy named Nino Niederreiter who got 57 points a couple years ago and then totally disappeared? Well, he has emerged from his slumber, 7 points in his last 9 games playing with Koivu, and of course, Zach Parise, who's had such an amazing season. And again, this is before today. What did Nino Niederreiter do today? Oh, nothing. Oh, well, too bad. Breaking my vibe here. But still, he's been good, playing with good players, so don't forget about him. Maybe he can get back to that 57-point guy that he once was.
Niederreiter at least has held on to a great deployment spot on the second line when there were whispers preseason that maybe Niederreiter was going to be displaced by Jordan Greenway. Credit to Boost Boudreau also for keeping Niederreiter there. Boudreau has been exceedingly patient as Nino tries to get rolling. Just 2 goals on 38 shots for a 5% shooting percentage, which is like a third of his shooting percentage from the last few years. So that could turn around. And as long as Niederreiter still holds a second line deployment, and of course, Koivu's rolling, Parise's rolling, that's probably helped Niederreiter stay put because no wholesale changes need to happen on a line where everyone's doing all right. I still think Niederreiter can get up to 55.
Yeah, so he's good. As long as he's getting, like last year, he had bad deployment. This year, it's looking good. He's playing with good players. So I would add him if he was available in free agency. I'd add Koivu first, but of course, it depends what categories you need help in, of course. Here's a tweet from @PRNHL. I still don't get why like @NHL doesn't do these tweets. Why is it PR_NHL tweeting out interesting things about what's going on in the league? So good job, league. But yeah, listen to this. Max Domi, 10 goals, 14 assists, and 24 points, is the first Montreal Canadiens player with 24 or more points in his first 20 games with the franchise since Odie Cleghorn in 1918-19, who had 30 points in his first 20 games. Wowie zowie, Max Domi is doing well, the best ever new Montreal Canadian in history, according to their first 20 games. According to this tweet, patron Ryan wanted us to bring him up. By the way, this is a perk of being a patron keeping Karlsson. I post that we're doing a show, and I ask, who do you want me to talk about? That helps help me plan the show here. And you get to hear, but honestly, Ryan, I don't know what to say. Like we just talked about Max Domi last week. He's still doing great. Brian said to sell high before, so maybe Brian will say now, actually, I changed my mind. Now he's great. Are you going to do that, Brian, or are you still thinking that he's not going to be able to keep this up?
I'm still thinking that he is not going to keep this up. He is no Odie Foghorn Cleghorn, who followed up his fantastic first year with the Canadiens with 24 points, 20 goals, 4 assists in 21 games in the 1919-20 season, almost 100 years ago. Fun to talk about, I guess. But yeah, I'm still saying Max Domi's production is unsustainable, but don't try telling that to Habs beat writer Eric Engels, who had a moment because I guess there's a really big chip on his shoulder about how people reacted to the Domi Galchenyuk trade. He like filled our timeline retweeting people who didn't like the Domi for Galchenyuk trade for the Habs side of it back when it happened. It's just like, man, like what place in your life do you need to be where that you feel like that's an important priority? No, I say all that,
come on, it's fun.
Once, like in April, I'm going to go back and I'm going to retweet all of his retweets to be just as equally petty about it.
Wow, Brian. I thought you were going to just compliment this guy for having fun on Twitter and entertaining us, but you went the other way.
It was too much. Like there were so many, and like he's not right. Like nothing has been proven right. Well, I mean, he's counting his chicks. They haven't hatched.
Good start for Domi. So Maybe it was an even trade. We'll find out.
Maybe I was a little harsh on Eric Engels there. Quality beat writer, shares a lot of good info, but like I was trying to like, get Twitter news and
Don't get mad at us, Engels. You know what? No press is bad press, or bad press is good press. I don't know. What's that saying?
Press is good press.
Sure, there you go. Another player that's doing really well is Cam Atkinson. He's on fire. He had a hat trick versus Carolina yesterday, which brought him to 9 points in his last 4 games, 20 points in 19 games on this season. Patron Sam wanted us to bring him up. He's great. Like, he's an all-star in the league, I feel like. Atkinson's awesome. His center, Pierre-Luc Dubois, has 9 points in his last 7 games. Panarin is on fire as well. Is there any reason to expect this top line to slow down on the Blue Jackets? I feel like just they're 3 really good players. They're playing really well together. There's actually an interesting trade in the Tier 2 Ottawa Couple division between Jesse and Brad yesterday. It was Besser and Pierre-Luc Dubois for Brad Marchand. So a classic 2-for-1 trade where Marchand is obviously the top guy, but then to get rid of him, you get some Besser and Pierre-Luc Dubois, 2 really good players, and Dubois doing so well. Who do you think won that trade? I think it's an interesting one.
Well, it all depends on what happened with the newly empty roster spot, right? It's a 2-for-1. You can't really evaluate it without knowing.
Yeah, I guess, but it's like, the cupful, right? It's like, around what types of free agents are available. I think he used it to take a player out of IR, but the types of players available are like, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. I don't know. It seems like a good trade. It seems like an even trade. I kind of prefer to have like super studs on my roster. That seems to be working as a strategy for me this year. So I think I'll take the Marchand side, but it certainly could go either way.
Yeah, I think a lot depends on Brock Besser, right? Like, he's injured right now. If he comes back soon, and if he and Elias Pettersson are just like, or Peter, I don't know, in the chat room now, Marcus is like, I think, trolling us right now with like ways to pronounce this guy's name. I'm just going to say Pettersson for the rest of this show, at least. But yeah, if Besser and Pettersson really click once he's back, like maybe this could end up being that Besser is almost as good as Marchand. I don't know. And Pierre Dubois is so good. So a very interesting trade for sure. And I know that Brad was trying to shake things up. He's had a rough start to the season. Bad luck. Head to head, sometimes it's tough. In a points league, you could see how many points you have compared to everyone else in the division. And it's very frustrating when you see that you have like more points overall than a lot of teams, but you have a worse record just because you've had bad luck and who your opponents have been. Them's the breaks. Still a lot of players I want to talk about. So patron John wanted us to bring up Dougie Hamilton again. He's still doing badly, right? Like, he's been put on the trade block.
Point tonight.
He did?
Yeah.
There you go. So it's all turned around. But I saw that he was actually traded in Tier 2 Binghamton for Ryan Getzlaf, which really surprised me. Like, I feel like Getzlaf is so amazing, and Dougie Hamilton has been terrible. I know defenseman versus centers is a big difference in value over replacement. But like, Brian, do you see value in Dougie Hamilton? Like, he has 1 point in his last 7. I guess now 2 in his last 8, if you include his point today. 7 points in 20 games on the season. Like, if you had Hamilton in the couple, I assume you'd be holding on, right? But he doesn't seem like a guy that's like a guaranteed even hold. So I'm surprised. I don't know. I think you might have lost that trade, Tier 2 Binghamton trader.
I would be holding on unless I could trade him for Ryan Getzlaf, which, yeah, I would do in maybe not a heart. Well, yeah, I'd do it quickly. I was just trying to be sensitive to it. Like, whoever traded Hamilton or Getzlaf, I love your faith in Dougie Hamilton. Here's one point of concern for Dougie Hamilton, like, because we've always been very faithful that Hamilton's going to be okay, both in his Calgary days and so far in Carolina. But Dougie Hamilton, he started this season shooting as he always does. 15 consecutive games to start the year in which Dougie Hamilton registered 3 or more shots. But since then, and I haven't checked today's game, but going into today's game, Hamilton had 3 or more shots just once in his last 4. So that's not great. And hopefully I'll get back on track. I would hold onto Hamilton versus drop him because I'm still hopeful. He does have a poor IPP. He does have a poor on ice shooting percentage, but keep in mind, he's also lost some deployment and a bit of time on ice compared to his Calgary days. And hopefully he's not about to lose anymore. It's not like Justin Falk has been lighting it up on the top power play either. So maybe there is some hope that Hamilton can still get up there and QB the top unit, at least get a tryout.
I don't know, Brian. Like, this has started to turn into like Letty Pulak talk, right? Like, oh,
yeah.
Like, I feel like, I don't know, Falk's been there this whole time and doesn't seem like there's any indication that things are going to change. Hamilton 2 shots today, so another day under that 3-shot threshold, though he did give his owners 4 blocks and 6 hits. So at least he got some, and an assist. So today was definitely a good game to have Dougie Hamilton. We'll have to maybe bring him up a little bit later. Not looking good. I just don't like, again, like Shattenkirk, I was saying, he's getting like almost 20 minutes a game. He had a little over 20 today and not on the top power play. So it's depending on how deep your league is. I don't know if he's a must hold, but he does have that upside. Like, I feel like he could get that great deployment and be really awesome. Like, I don't know even if Shattenkirk has the same upside that someone like Dougie Hamilton has. Like, he's a very high pedigree guy that we've expected to be like maybe a top 10 fantasy defenseman in the league if everything went right. It's definitely not going right this year. Clayton Keller on Arizona, slumping lately. He has only 1 point in his last 5 games. Should his owners be worried? Brian, we projected Keller for 75 points. We both said 75 going into the season. So far, he has 12 points in 19 games. That puts him on pace for 52, so we're way off right now. Are you concerned about Clayton Keller, or do you think that this is going to turn around anytime?
Keller is now goalless in 10 games, no goals on 20 shots in those 10 games. Arizona as a team is having a hard time scoring, though. This is not just isolated to Clayton Keller. They have just 8 goals in their last 5 games, and 4 of those goals came in a single game. So in the other games, they had 4 goals in 4 games. The Coyotes, one thing they really need to do is get their power play sorted. 26th in power play conversion rate. They're converting just under 15% of their power play opportunities. The Coyotes are also 27th. Well, I mean, not also. It falls in line with the stat I just gave. They have just 9 power play goals for, which is 27th in the league. And they are dead last in expected goals for per 60 minutes on the power play. So essentially what that means is the Coyotes deserve to not be scoring too many power play goals. Something's wrong, and hopefully they can fix it. I mean, at least Keller has a point on 4 of Arizona's 9 power play markers, but he and they need to get things going with the man advantage if we're to keep hoping for a big year from him.
Okay, so what is the actionable? I'm just trying to say,
the actionable advice is hold on. Like, what else are you going to do with Clayton Keller unless you're in a shallower league?
No, you're not going to drop him, but I've been seeing now some trades where he's being valued a lot lower. Like people being like, I'm just going to trade him for someone that I'm more confident in at this point.
I would be more concerned if Clayton Keller continues not scoring once the rest of his team starts scoring. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm still willing to wait on him. He's still taking a reasonable amount of shots. Goals just aren't coming for him or anyone in Arizona. So I'm going to hang tight for a little longer and see what happens once the Coyotes start scoring 2 or 3 goals each game again.
Yeah, don't forget, going to last year, people were like, Clayton Keller's a player. He's going to be like amazing in the league, and it could happen like this year. He was great last year for long stretches. Cam Robinson, prospect expert, has been high on him forever. By the way, you might be hearing from Cam Robinson very soon. But I'll leave that as a surprise. But he might be showing up on our podcast. I don't know exactly when, but it's going to happen soon. If Brian maybe needs. Anyway, okay. I'll just say, okay, Brian, you're a big excitement, right?
Yeah.
Brian's gonna be having a baby soon.
What?
Well, not him. A baby's gonna be moving in with him.
Junior part 2.
Yeah. So, and I've got amazing. I'm like now calling out Cam, so he can't change his mind. He's agreed to take over for a week or 2 while Brian is on paternity leave. So it's gonna be really. The podcast will go on.
And if Keller is still struggling at that point, if Cam's giving up on Keller, then everybody should. So his advice will be very instructive there.
Yeah, he won't give up on Keller. I guarantee you.
No way.
A couple like interesting line changes. Pominville was bumped from the top line on Buffalo. Reinhart got back there. I feel like I called that on the last episode, so I'm going to take some credit for that. Pominville actually still, I think, scored a goal in the last game, but I feel like he's probably droppable in a lot of leagues. Maybe you want to grab Reinhart. Nugent Hopkins also bumped from the top line. I'm not sure if we've talked about that. Draisaitl and McDavid are together, though. Edmonton's losing today, so maybe that'll change at some point. I don't really have a question here. Just do you want to say anything about either of these, or maybe I'll move on? Like, you got to watch with these lines. Like someone like Pominville, he was on such an amazing run, but you couldn't have expected him to last all year. Like Reinhart has been the one penciled in to be that top line, top power play center for like years now. Playing with Eichel.
Yeah, exactly. And then it was Nugent Hopkins again. Like this is a coaching question. Like what are the Oilers going to look like tomorrow? Right. And at that point, we'll see what exactly happens with Nugent Hopkins. For now, in the game that's happening as we record, he's playing with Alex Chiasson and Ryan Spooner. Still Draisaitl, McDavid, and Caggiula, who is probably like Caggiula's the Oiler you want as after Nugent Hopkins, and of course Ty Ratty is not even playing, so don't be snoozing on him. Yeah,
get rid of Ratty. You don't need him.
And Lucic, forget Lucic is done. Drop him.
What is this, 2016? Like, yeah, obviously. Bye. Okay. Esa Lindell was playing on the top power play today on Dallas, not Miro Heiskanen, and he scored 2 goals. He hadn't been doing anything before offensively, but I feel like now if you want to grab a defenseman who's in a good spot, go grab Lindell for as long as Klingberg is out. Who knows if Heiskanen gets back up on the top power play? But I think there's a lesson here. I feel like, Brian, we were too much like when Klingberg got injured, like, okay, this is Heiskanen's time. He's going to for sure now stick on the top power play. I feel like maybe we were a bit too confident about that. He's still a rookie. Like, things can easily change, and I don't think I'm going to make that mistake again. It's similar like in Buffalo, right? Like, we were like, oh, once Dahlin gets there, that's it. Like, it's done for Ristolainen, and then like they've switched back and forth. I think Dahlin's actually back there as of the last game. But yeah, watch out for Esa Lindell and maybe Miro Heiskanen, sorry, in a one-year league. I don't know how exciting he is right now off the top power play. Still a lot of upside.
So much upside. And I don't think we were totally wrong to be like this, maybe this can happen. It just didn't, unfortunately. So I hope Heiskanen can find his offensive game eventually, maybe still even before Klingberg comes back. But if you added him only because Klingberg was out, perhaps it's time to look for his replacement.
Okay, and finally, Brian, let's end with the great news that Erik Karlsson is still an amazing hockey player, and he's finally showing it offensively. What's that?
Never in doubt.
Never in doubt, of course. But it's nice to see, like, I grabbed him in the first round in a couple of my leagues, and I'd been really regretting it because he just wasn't clicking. But now he's got a 3-game point streak going, a goal and an assist yesterday. That goal was a power play goal. It was a beauty. It was a really big rebound, actually. It was maybe a bit of a gift. But hey, he needed it to get that first goal, get off the schneid, and I'm very excited. I probably, like I said before, I would have probably traded him for not value, so I'm glad that none of my competitors took advantage of me. I really appreciate it, and I'm wearing my Sharks hat proudly. I'm a big bandwagon guy, by the way, Brian. I'm wearing my Sharks hat because I love Karlsson. I'm wearing my Leafs shirt because they're, I think, first in the league right now. It's a great time to be me, and it's a great time to have Erik Karlsson. He's great. He's awesome. I can't wait to see how long this point streak lasts.
Yeah, well, his point drought lasted 7 games. Finally, it's over. Karlsson has his first goal of the season. So now you're either going to have Erik Karlsson owners. It's almost like you wonder how people will approach it who have Erik Karlsson. Like, Elon, you own Jake Allen. And whenever he had a fantastic start, you were like, oh, maybe this is my chance. So you're either going to have Karlsson owners who still don't believe in him, who are like, oh, this is my chance to get rid of Karlsson. And are willing to try and sell him in a last gasp, sell high effort because they don't think it'll last. Or you're going to get Erik Karlsson owners who are slamming that buy low window right on your fingers because you missed it. It's always worth checking out. If you're a Karlsson believer, send a note to the Karlsson owner and be like, hey, want to get him off your hands? Although it's a really hard time to approach that person with a trade if you haven't already.
Yeah, he's great. I'm not worried anymore. I was worried. I guess I should. Maybe I'm being like too crazy now. And then in a week, if he has like 2 pointless games, I'll be like, okay, so I don't want to sound too like reactionary, but it's just nice to see him starting to click. Like I said, 3-game point streak. Let's see if he can keep up. He's like he's such an amazing player. It's I've been seeing interesting commentary saying it was more like the Sharks needed to adjust to playing with Karlsson as opposed to Karlsson needing to adjust. But like he plays in this great way and people have to be ready for these passes that other people wouldn't be able to give to them. So I don't know. It might just be people lauding praise because they love him and he's such a cool guy. But it'll be really fun to see now what happens for the rest of the season. Now that he's off the schneid, like I said, getting points, I'd love to see how things are going to go. And I also really love my bet I made at the start of the year on the Sharks winning the cup. I forget what my odds were, but I feel like I got a few hundos coming my way if they could take it all the way.
Wow. Love the betting talk.
Oh yeah. Brian's like against betting.
No, we just don't endorse it.
I do. I think it's fine.
You endorse betting?
I think in moderation, it's a fun activity.
Sure. Know your limit, play within it.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for listening to another show. This has been a lot of fun. We covered a lot of ground, so hopefully you found something actionable that will help you in your league. If you have any feedback, if you want to ask us any questions, we're always happy to help on Twitter. Brian, are we maybe one of the most we respond to basically every tweet? Like, I don't want to. Yeah, I do want to brag, right? It's a good Twitter account. I'm proud of it. We're trying our best. So tweet at us at Keeping Karlsson with your fantasy questions, or if you have any feedback or advice, we'd be happy to hear from you. At Keeping Karlsson, like I said. Okay, what else? You could give us a 5-star review on iTunes if you like the show. We always really appreciate that. If you really like the show and you want to not only contribute, but also get extra back, you can become a patron of Keeping Karlsson, keepingkarlsson.com/patron. You get a ton of perks. You'll see it all on the website, but it includes a Facebook group that is rocking really smart people giving great advice and also like really funny posts as well. Then you've got our monthly patron cast, which Brian, I don't even know. Like, we're going to have to figure out when we're going to do that. Maybe we could try to do that before you have that baby. A lot of other perks like show notes every week. Check it out, keepingkarlsson.com/patron. Oh, a whole other podcast called The Stream Scheme by Dave Benton. I have to post the most recent one right now. He already sent it to me. It's a really great show, and it's only for the patrons of Keeping Karlsson. So again, keepingkarlsson.com/patron to see all of the perks. Check it out. $5 a month. You get everything. You support the show. You buy Brian or I a beer once a month. Plus, you can cancel it at any time. So why not try it out for a month, see if you like it. But with that, Brian, how about we cue the outro music and you can go ahead and read us the credits.
All right. This episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast was presented by Dobber Hockey and powered by our patrons, including our newest ones, Michael D. and Darren W. And thanks to everyone for leaving iTunes reviews. Shout out to Malone Sauce, Young Fajita, and KB9087217, who left some very kind 5-star reviews. Not a shout out to Steamer9456, Nails on a Chalkboard, says Steamer9456. The host voice are so annoying. The one is so bad, it's unlistenable. Like, we get one of those about every 6 months. Elon, whose voice do you think is the one that Steamer's talking about?
I don't want to say. I don't know. 50-50. Coin flip.
I think it is a coin. Well, no, it's probably me. Okay. This episode was researched, but you can give us a review, by the way, if you want to help us bump that bad one out of the way. This episode of Keeping Karlsson was researched with help from, you have to actually write the review too, not just click the 5-star button. Dobber Hockey, Frozen Pool, Dobber Prospects, Corsica, Natural Stat Trick, ShiftChart.com, which is a fantastic way to get, like a very pretty way to get live in-game line combos. Charting Hockey, Natural Stat Trick. Did I say these already? Hockey Goalies, Hockey Reference, Hockey Viz, Hockey Database, Elite Prospects, Roto World, and Yahoo.
Yeah, great job as always, Brian, except for when you read the credits. It was a bit shaky, but overall, amazing show. Thank you for all the work you put into it. And thanks again to everyone for listening. We'll catch you all with another episode next week, maybe with Brian, maybe not.
Until then, keep on keeping Karlsson. Tried to make my voice a little more annoying, but I couldn't even handle it.
I just wanted to say keep on keeping Karlsson and enjoying it because it's a pleasure.
Keep on enjoying keeping Karlsson.
Bye.
Bye.
Cool. Thank you, chat room. So fun. You guys helped so much.
Great night for the chat room.
I feel like our pronunciations, it bugs me because I feel like we're putting so much effort into trying to get it right that then we like expose when we're wrong because we try to correct ourselves.
We're very self-aware.
Yeah. We'll see. I don't know. I guess we're pretty bad. It's hard to know. Zucker. Give me a break.
Well, apparently Marcus was saying that it shows like it's written the pronunciation one way on the website, but if you click the like sound example, it's the opposite. Like Zucker says his name Zucker.
And then what was that thing about Pedersen? Like it's like Peter space son, and then he was saying in Sweden it would be Pedersen. Like I don't know.
Peterson, I think Peterson.
Okay, so we'll try to figure it out for next week. Thanks everyone again. Really appreciate it. Ryan, glad you enjoyed your first night. Come back every week. Bye bye.
Bye everyone. Thank you.